If I cross my legs, is that going to be weird in the
do
shot?
It's not going to be weird. It's going to be awesome.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
I
let's
like
get a little spice it up a little bit. Yeah, so we know each other, just kind of like Rolling Star. We know each other from just friends in Boulder, mutual friends. We've done some mountain biking together. We've done some speech like practice, like what were we doing?
What were we doing? That was just kind of like live action, figure out how to tell your story and figure out
public speaking.
Yeah, exactly. How to stand up in front of a group and share what you're passionate about in an effective way, right?
Yeah.
I forgot we did that together. That was super fun.
And I think it was like randomly good luck that we were both in there.
Yeah.
Because I was doing a lot of Toastmasters at the time. I was doing a little bit of improv. I was like, what am I doing with this? It's like, it's kind of the modern day entrepreneur. It's like, you've got to be in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And you are a lot. You're putting a lot of content out there lately.
I am. I shot probably an hour of content yesterday, which has been the most of any individual day. And then that'll be, blocked into pieces and put out over the next couple of days and weeks.
Is anybody helping you with it?
No, not right. Like friends are helping me with like space. So I shot that in my friend's art studio yesterday. So that's helping. But no, in terms of like shooting it and editing it, I've got a lot of this stuff left over from a couple years ago. I have all the gear. And so now I'm just trying to remember how to use it, like getting the cameras on the right settings and changing it for like a really bright scene to like a darker scene. And like, just this big learning curve there.
Yeah, it's looking good. And that's how we get good at anything. We just practice it.
Yeah, I love it. And you got me onto CapCut. So I'm throwing stuff into CapCut, which I used to be, decent at Adobe Premiere Pro, and CapCut's just easier.
It's so easy.
And the new AI features are great.
Yeah, and you can multicam this. We got 4 cameras going, and it will sync it all up. Yeah. And then you can just click between. And I'm like, I've got a couple editors that are helping me, but I've started to learn how to edit the whole show more and more. Yeah. The hardest part is selecting the moments. What is the hook? And then what is like the whole story behind it for those like 30-second social reels. That's been the hardest part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's still the hardest part for me too. It's trying to figure out how to get something into that tiny form factor that people will pay attention to, which is like the shorter I cut something, the more engagement it gets. And so it's this conundrum of like, can I tell my story in 30 seconds? Can I tell my story in 10 seconds? What can I even say in 3 seconds? Can I say something in 1 second? I'm trying to figure that out still.
For me, I've taken a couple social media classes, content creation, and they're like, put 80% of your effort in the hook.
Yeah. Okay.
If the hook isn't interesting, if they don't watch the first 3 seconds, they're not going to watch the next 30 seconds.
That makes sense.
So it's just all hook all day. I like that we've got this overlapping path of content creation, that we've taken some workshops together before. Now, you've been a friend that's always really inspired me. You've lived a very full life. Great success in your 20s, a business over $100 million, I believe.
Yeah.
You've got a wife of 19 years, 2 kids, beautiful home, and you're an adventure athlete. You've done a lot of big skiing. I mean, we've done mountain biking, more like chill recreational mountain biking, but you're a very strong mountain biker. Rafting, and then you were just showing me you've got some scars because you recently had 2 diagnoses with cancer.
Yep. My second one in 44 years, which is too many. I'll tell you that much. But it's the path. And now you are becoming the human optimization guy. Yeah. People calling you that? The optimal pace guy. That's the what I've started to become. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, the optimal pace guy. It wasn't a path I chose, but it's been a really delightful path. And that's part of the spark that reconnected us for this podcast to happen. Is I've started seeing you put a lot of content out on it. You shared, you're like, hey, does anybody want to try this out? And I started trying it out. I was like, okay, maybe I've taken the test 3-4 times in the last week or so. Nice. Yeah. And then I saw that you did a keynote in town recently. What was that at? Yeah, I've done 3 in the last week, which is so many for me. So 2 of them were the long form, which is about a 35-minute keynote, which it's got a little bit of a long title, but the concept is how to build superhuman teams. And the challenge we all have in building superhuman teams is that everyone's sprinting, which means everyone's overworking and they're not in the optimal productivity zone, and nobody's mentally resilient anymore. This always-on life that we lead is just kind of knocking knocked everybody down a level, and we're all just kind of bumping along, leaders and their teams. And so it's a keynote about how we can try and solve that problem, and based on a lot of research and studies that I've actually had the opportunity to run in the last 10 years, which is cool.
Well, I look forward to diving into that first. Would you give us the 30,000-foot overview of kind of your life so far? Some of the highlights, some of the things you're maybe most proud of?
Yeah, I have been given this huge opportunity in life and this huge experience in life to live a very extreme life. And I see this pattern that I trace from both my business success and business failure, very extreme on both sides, into seeing that pattern in my personal life as well. So the very, very high level view of unique things that I've gotten to do in my life is I built a $100 million company in my 20s. I had 250 full-time employees that worked for me when I was 25 years old. And so I got thrown into an absolute gauntlet that I asked for. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to build a business. And then it became successful, and we started hiring up a huge team, and we had millions of customers all around the world. I signed a $16 million lease when I was 23 years old with my name on it saying, I promise we'll pay you all this money for this big office space we're getting. Things that most people will never get to do and things that I never dreamed of doing. And then I've had 2 battles with cancer in my life, one at 28 years old and one that started almost exactly 1 year ago. And those have taken me to the absolute edge of existence, to the edge of my limits and beyond in many cases, and shown me what 10 out of 10 pressure looks like when it's important, it's urgent, and and it's complex. The business was complex, and navigating cancer twice has been quite a complex journey.
What would you say your superpower is? How do you get to such a entrepreneurial success at such a young age?
Yeah, I think it's curiosity. I think I just love digging into a problem and trying to figure out how to solve it. And there's been actual joy and excitement that has come out of trying to figure out how to survive cancer for a second time now, in some of these moments where I'm digging into research studies with the help of an amazing expert team, and I'm in the room with other extremely knowledgeable people on the topic, and I'm able to ask good questions because I'm curious, and I've read the research and I've read the background information before I show up. I've had doctors say to my wife after sessions, after I leave, I think Aaron knows more about this topic than I do. And they're saying it flippantly. But the point is, I'm coming in as a very educated customer. And it's just because I'm super curious about this stuff. And when it matters to me, I'm curious about it. And when it's important to other people, I'm curious about it as well. I like trying to solve problems for other people. So I'm just an absolute tinkerer. I think I just love picking up the pieces and trying to figure out what the subcomponents of something are. And I've done that in the business world, and I've done that in my personal life. And it's honestly something that draws me to a lot of the outdoor adventures I have too. Getting into guiding in whitewater now and taking people on wilderness adventures. I'm up to 7 boats that I have now for taking people out on adventures. And I just love, what will that boat be like in this experience? What will that be like? Which one's safer? Which one's more fun? Which one's faster? Mm-hmm. And I love just testing it out and finding out and making mistakes. That was the wrong boat for that one. In May, I pinned my 11-foot raft in Boulder Creek, just downstream from Ebbenfein Park, with my really good friend Charles on the boat and his 12-year-old daughter. Pinned it on a rock under the pedestrian bridge.
Pinning it meaning it's stuck.
Stuck on a rock, and as it was getting sucked under, we all jumped off the boat, and we're now standing in the middle of Boulder Creek when it's a torrent, right, in spring when the water's just coming down, and it's like class 3, class 4 whitewater, and the boat just gets sucked under, and then it just disappears. And it's just stuck, and it's bent around a rock. This is a massive, strong, inflatable boat. And I found the limit that day. I was curious if we could do it, and I got to make a mistake. And standing there on that rock in the middle of the creek, I thought, I've probably pushed a little too far this time.
Now, that can be a very humbling creek. I mean, a lot of people have gotten quite hurt on that creek. Yeah. I've tubed down it a few times, and I've always worn a life vest and a helmet, and I've seen other people just get smashed.
I've gotten injured tubing a couple times on it, and the amount of speed you can hold when it's up really high in a raft is even faster. And it's great as long as you go around all the obstacles. But we just made a small mistake, me guiding in the back. I thought we could go right. Last minute, I said, we can't go right. We got to go left. We didn't make the left move. We hit the rock sideways. Within 3 seconds, the raft was gone. And it was pinned underwater in a way that if any of us had still been in the boat, we would have been with it. We quickly made a move, got on the rock, and we got out. And it was one of those moments that makes you think, like, it's fun to be curious, and it's fun to push the limits. And we got lucky another day on that day.
When did you get curious about leadership? When did you start practicing that? When did that show up first for you?
Oh, it started in Boy Scouts as a kid. I was an Eagle Scout. I was leading groups at like the patrol level in Boy Scouts. Which were you in Scouts?
I made it to Life, which is one before Eagle.
Exactly.
And then the social pressure of I quit before that, but my brother is also an Eagle Scout.
Yeah, and you did 90% of the work to get to Life, so you're familiar with it.
And I loved it.
Yeah, you loved it as well.
I loved it.
Yeah, was this growing up in Chicago?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just a lot of time in the woods. Loved making just my childhood was mostly riding bikes and making like Swiss Family Robinson style making tree forts.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a lot
and
of
Boy
that
Scouts
too.
Taught me how to make like lean-tos and little forts.
Yeah, how to do all the lashings and I loved that stuff. I could build stuff out of lashings.
I mean, if you're not a pyro, then are you really a Boy Scout?
Exactly. My friends were called Bic flickers because of Bic lighters, you know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, by their school teachers when they got in trouble. Yeah, that's where I first felt it, and I felt this enjoyment from leadership was in Boy Scouts as a probably 13, 14-year-old leading small groups and patrols. And then scouting gave me huge opportunities all the way up to going to 2 national jamborees, being the senior patrol leader of one of them. So I had maybe 40 kids and a whole bunch of adults kind of technically under me in terms of leading them through a 2-week destination camping thing where we built huge structures and participated in lots of events. And so that gave me a lot of confidence. That was all before going off to college and studying computer science and before I really had a team member on any of my business teams. It was kind of me as a tinkerer and a hobbyist building websites and doing graphic design and some basic software stuff. And then I started to have teams on the business side, and I just felt super comfortable with it. I know exactly what's likely to go wrong with a team of 10 people. And I saw the same patterns on the business side that I saw with scouts out in the woods. Somebody isn't as prepared as they should have been. Let's figure out how to support them. Somebody has a disagreement with somebody else. Let's figure out how to solve the disagreement. And it had become muscle memory already through some experiences with scouting, so that when I started to run into that in the business world, it just felt like the same thing. The team members were just a little older and a little more serious in their conflicts, but that was about it. It was all the same stuff.
Yeah. How would you describe your leadership style?
Player coach, just part of the team. I have this huge draw. It's part of my personality to just want to be on the team. So as much as I like leading the team, I also love being part of the team. And so I'm trying to be a player on this team. And to the extent I need to be a coach, I'll be a coach. But the part I love the most is just being like on a high performing team, being in the room, being trusted by other people to be a supporter or part of the team that has to deliver something. And then, when things rise to the level where the coach or the leader needs to step in, I do that sort of work. Not begrudgingly, but just it's not my favorite part. Like the part where I got to corral everybody and get them back on the same sheet music. Which I've done time and time again. But my favorite part is when we're all just side by side, just, it's kind of like rafting down the creek. Oftentimes when I run that raft, I run R2, which is 2 people in a raft, each with a paddle. And so you have to have unbelievably synchronized teamwork between the 2 paddlers, because the person on the left can pretty much only make the raft go to the right and the person on the right can pretty much only make it go to the left, which means every turn you have to make has to be coordinated between 2 people. And like that's when I feel most alive, when I'm just part of this team where I'm trusted by the person next to me. I'm trusting them to make decisions. And I've had plenty of runs down Boulder Creek where we've done it flawlessly. And those feel great too.
So who are you guiding? Who are you doing this with?
Yeah, mostly family and friends. I'm not doing anything commercially, but I'm in summer, we're up in Steamboat Springs, and I'm on the Colorado River, called the Upper Sea, which is just downstream from Winter Park, where everything kind of starts in Lake Granby. Where the Colorado River starts. And then the Yampa River that runs through Steamboat has a lot of water in it in April, May, and June. And so I run that. There's usually an April day where I ski, go up for closing weekend. I ski in the morning, raft through town with a dry suit on with snow on the banks, go back up, ski the next day, come down, raft through town again. I did it this year. And then the Green River in kind of western Colorado and up into Wyoming and into Utah. And I'm taking people out on these beautiful canyons. Some of them require wilderness permits to get on, and starting to figure out how to get those permits and take friends out. And just loving it. Yeah, it's friends and family, and sometimes groups as big as like 10, 12 people. And sometimes we're overnight on the river, so bringing everything we need to sleep, or we're going to a remote cabin on the river and then setting up camp and breaking it all down and putting it all back on the boats and leaving by water the next day. And they're just delightful ways to get out into under the stars, into really quiet places. And like most good adventures, the further you get out, the less people you see and the more wild it is. And I found in river canyons that happens really quickly. It's like the first mile out of hiking a parking lot in Rocky Mountain National Park, the number of people drops exponentially, but you're going to still see 10 people after that next mile. On the river, it often goes to zero pretty quickly.
Okay.
You're a mile down the river, you're 100 yards down the river from the put-in, and you might not see another person until you take out 7 hours later. And so it gets really cool access to some wild places.
And what type of feedback do you get from the people that you're guiding? Like, what are people feeling? What type of insights, what type of realizations might someone get from an experience like that?
I'll tell you, a lot of them come out of that. If it's their first time on a river, I hear from them about a month later, they bought a boat. They bought an inflatable kayak.
Wow.
Or they bought an inflatable paddleboard. And I think that's my favorite feedback to hear from anybody is it's like, wow, you've really dove into this, and they're excited about it. There's something magical that happens on the longer trips, and the longer trips are a little more rare for me, but they're my favorite. So 3 to 4 to 5 days out on the river, and something really, really magical happens to me every time, and I'm finding it happens to people I bring with me as well, which is that day one, we put our phone in a dry bag, and we get it out a couple times to take pictures because it's all really fantastic. There's no cell service in any of these places for the most part. And so then day two, maybe there's like a cool picture on the beach. Someone takes their phone out once and they put it away and they put it back in the dry bag. And it's something about being in the wilderness and something about no cell service and something about the fact that you need to put it away in a dry bag to keep it safe. And that kind of makes it harder and harder. And the dopamine loop kind of continues to dissolve each day we get away from our always connected lives. And then people start to have these really wild experiences where they're just present. And I feel this myself. By day 3, there's some point always in day 3 on the river where I just take this huge exhale and I realize, all right, it just happened. Like my nervous system has retuned itself to something else other than this always connected life on my device. And I feel peaceful and I feel calm. And I feel like me again. I feel like that version of us, like building forts as a kid, whatever that was, that it wasn't a dopamine loop, that's for sure. It was this just like deep connection and satisfaction with something.
Yeah. How would you describe your relationship with nature?
It's the other half of my life other than the, capitalistic building striving part. It's like the other half of my lungs. I can only do what I do, and with building and striving and setting goals in the commercial world, because I have the other half to fill my cup back up again. So to me, those two can't be separated.
Is that what brought you to Boulder? The connection to nature? How we're just like in it so easily?
It is. It was a little more tactical than that. I was sharing with someone recently that like the real absolute moment that got me to move to Boulder from North Carolina to out here to Colorado in 2017 was realizing there was a time optimization to be made because I was driving between 3 and 5 hours a week to go out to trailheads, to go mountain biking or to go trail running or to go hiking or to just set up my hammock and sit in the woods, and sometimes skiing, even more hours in winter to go skiing on the East Coast. And I could just get that time back if I lived somewhere where I didn't have to drive so far to do it. And I just had this epiphany one day of if I lived in a town where the trailhead was in my neighborhood and I could just get on my bike and ride it a couple of streets and be at the trailhead, then I would get like 5 hours of my work week back every week and working, 40, 50 hours a week at that point. That was a big chunk of my time was spent driving back and forth. And I thought, that's not as fun as it could be. And I'm going to try this boulder thing out and see if it's a way that I can just get some of my life back. Like, what would my life look like if I could spend 5 more hours a week in the outdoors instead of in a car driving to go enjoy the outdoors? Like, it could almost double the amount of outdoor time that I got. So it started as a really simple optimization. And I think in the first year, on some lazy hikes where I had no schedule and nothing to be back for, no specific time I had to get back to my office or back home again, I started to really feel a little bit of what I feel on the river now. Not to the extent. There's something magical about that 3 full days of complete unplug for me. Sure. But what I'm feeling in my time in nature here in town is a significant reset.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe Boulder to the people that haven't visited or let alone live here?
Yeah. A town and group of people striving to find an identity between the solace of nature and the intensity of capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's both alive here. It's not like everybody is a bunch of hippies that wanders around in the woods here. I feel like there is a great appreciation for the value of that, and there's also at the same time a held belief that building things is great, and participating to some extent in the game of capitalism is also fun and or rewarding, or we're still trying to break our addiction to it. I think a lot of people here, like me, maybe started with an addiction to that and are trying to unwind it.
Yeah, what drives you now in that world? Where do your passions lie?
Helping people, connecting with people through experiences in the outdoors. One of my big pillars in life right now is that guiding people on adventures in the wilderness. And I went this spring and got certified through Knowles as a wilderness first responder, did their 80-hour course down at Colorado School of Mines. And to me, that felt like a really great example of me committing to live in that identity of getting better at taking people on really great adventures and making it safe. And making sure we all jump off the raft at the right time when we pin on the rock, and knowing what to do if we don't. So yeah, I'm really digging in deep on trying to help people have these unique experiences and feel comfortable with them and discover some of what I've discovered, what you can do on a 30-minute walk on the edge of town when you walk out of the urban corridor into peaceful nature, or what you can do when you even go deeper and spend 3 to 4 days on a river floating through wilderness canyons and getting in natural hot springs that just sort of ooze out of the rocks on the side of the river, and seeing how they change. And that connects me to them. It's seeing that transformation in them and just feeling so alive and getting to spend that time with them in that experience and just watch how their eyes change from day to day.
So what's next for you in that type of way? You're guiding friends and family. Do you see yourself guiding commercially?
Yeah, it was a goal I set this summer, and I didn't pull it off. So it was a small personal failure, and then I wanted to get signed on commercially with a rafting company and get signed off as a commercial guide. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing it, but I just thought it would be a nice benchmark to have to continue to feel like I could safely provide these experiences to my own friends and family. And so yeah, next summer that's one of my goals, is to officially get signed off as a guide. I'm not going to fly to the Southern Hemisphere this winter and get it done. I don't need it that urgently. But when it warms up here again and the rivers start running in probably May or June, that's one of my commits.
Has guiding or being in nature, what has that taught you about business, about leadership, about passion, anything like that? Where do you see the overlaps? Where does being in nature, besides just resetting you and refilling you, what type of lessons kind of carry over?
I see it most clearly on rivers. And, my big activities, my big 3 are skiing. I'm skiing 75 plus days a year usually.
And where are you going?
Not this last year. Steamboat a lot, Eldora a fair amount, and then a little bit of Vail Resorts. Yeah. And then mountain biking. So 50 to 100 days, kind of depending on the range. And then it's river time, and some of those are big, long days on the river, and I'm probably getting 25 to 30 of those in each summer. So out of the 90 days of summer, about 1 in 3 days, I'm on a river somewhere. And among all 3 of those, I feel this flow across all of them, but there's something that's even clearer about that analogy for me on rivers, and this moment of preparing, of knowing and understanding the challenge ahead, and getting all of that gear and all of my knowledge and my primed mind state, trying to get into a calm place where I can be a good and safe and efficient leader on the river, and getting all of the people trained to what they need to know to stay safe, and then all the gear on the boat. And then there's this moment that is an absolute instant where we push off the shore. And the second we push off, we're in the current. And these are all pretty fast moving rivers. And some of them, there's real current at the put in. So you are 1 foot offshore, you're going 8 miles an hour downstream. And a fully loaded 14-foot oar rig raft with coolers and dry boxes and 7 people on it is 2,000 pounds plus. And so you've got 8 miles an hour momentum in a 2,000-pound object, and there is no going back upstream. Like, physically impossible. You put a huge outboard motor on there, and you couldn't push that thing back upstream. And so you now make the best choices you can with the position you're in. And every instant, you're going to be further downriver than you were at the previous moment. So you're constantly moving. And all I can really do with the oars is move the boat left or right, or turn it a little bit. Maybe it's like a little bit like a hot air balloon. Like, there's not a lot of control over, like, I suddenly want to be on the right side of the river. I can't just get over there in 2 seconds. It might take me a minute and a half to get to the right side of the river when I realize I'm on the left side of the river. So there's so much surrendering that happens. And I think for me, the river makes it obvious that a great deal of effort is often unnecessary, because the river often makes a great deal of effort not effective or usable at all. Like, I could put my entire strength into rowing that raft upstream, and I would still be going downstream. Completely futile. And so it's taught me to look for opportunities in the business world where I can just be in the current, and to recognize opportunities in the business world where no matter how hard I row, something else is going to be the deciding factor. And if I can figure out how to align with that instead of resist it, I think there's a lot of power there.
Have you ever been more of like the motorboat, where you're like, I'm just pouring gas and fuel and I'm going to go any direction I want really, really quickly? Have you been that? I mean,
Yeah. I'd say in my most successful business, hundreds of employees, we got to about $50 million in annual revenue at one point. We raised $65 million from investors in kind of increasing chunks over the years leading up to that. We had a big engine because of all that capital and all that power and that huge team. And I would say 70% of the time when we used that engine to go somewhere, we realized we didn't want to be there in the first place. It would have been a lot easier to have done something else. But when you have a big engine on the back of your boat, you fire that sucker up and you try to go somewhere just to say you've done it.
Yeah,
you burn a lot of gas. Yeah. And you sit there and, pound your chest and, we did it. And then you get to the other side of the river and you're like, the left side actually looked better. Fire it back up. Let's go back over there. Right. And you might have been better off to just make the decision. Let's just stay river left and see how it goes.
How are you identifying these opportunities to just be in the river, just to be in the flow? To someone who's looking for a first-time opportunity?
Yeah. For me, it's testing. And I think the amazing thing that's happened in the last 2 years is that in the digital marketing world, in the software world, in the content world, AI tools are making it so much faster for us to take ideas into something that's testable, like a testable prototype, and get real feedback on it. Like this summer, I was taking a shower one morning. I get up, I have this idea, great shower idea, like I often get. And here I am thinking like, man, it would be cool to figure out if this thing is like even real. Like how would users interact with this? It was an idea for a piece of software I wanted to build for when I was giving keynotes to let the audience respond in real time. And it was a very kind of nerdy, specific thing I needed them to respond on a scale from like 0 to 100. And then I wanted this visualization to like update in real time. And I thought, gosh, that'd be cool to just poll an audience instantly, scan a QR code, they move a slider, and then boom, this visualization shows us what you think and what you think and what we think on average and who the outliers are. And this like cool visualization for some of these questions I ask in my keynote. And I got out of the shower, I had a cup of coffee, I had breakfast, and I sat down at my laptop. and I fired up Cursor and Claude Sonnet, and I explained what I wanted to build, and within 30 minutes it was built. And an hour later, I had it in front of people getting their feedback before noon that day. And so I think that's always been the value to me, is like, just test it, because if people don't get it, or there's a ton of resistance, or if it's a great idea, but somehow I just can't communicate it to somebody else, then it's not a great opportunity, or I need to figure out a different way to communicate it. And so I'm always trying to close that loop by testing things. And now, like, I would never have tested that idea before, because it wasn't good enough for me to want to invest a month and a half of time and $15,000 to pay a team to maybe build it, or for me to build it myself, probably 25 to 30 hours of time coding it. And now I had a working prototype of the thing in a half hour. And so now I'm able to test more things than I've ever been able to test before. And so I think that's the big opportunity for everybody else now, is figure out what the tools are, whether they're AI or not, that can take ideas that are in your head and put it into something practical enough that you can put it in front of your target audience, or even just a friend or a spouse or your kids. It depends on who the audience is, but who can you get this thing in front of quickly? And I mean, I show prototypes to my 12-year-old a lot now, and just like, hey, does this make sense? What do you see? And he's like, what is that? I'm like, it's a slider. And he's like, oh, I didn't realize you could slide that. And I'm like, all right, got to go back to the drawing board on the visual. Like, if everybody can't figure out that's a slider you're supposed to move, then I'm going to lose people there. So I think that's the superpower right now, is, my testing methodology is my methodology for looking at any idea is, can I test it, and what's the feedback on it? And then now the time to do that has just gone from thousands of dollars in weeks to months to $4 in AI credits in 30 minutes. And so that means that the next class of builders out there are 100 times more powerful than I was building my most successful company 15 years ago.
Share about some of your like technology stack. What are the tools that you're using?
Yeah, building most everything in React. So the stuff that's going on the mobile platforms is in React Native. It's going on Apple Store and the Android Play Store. And anything that's web is kind of standard React. And for backend stuff, I'm using Firebase for almost everything, Google's cloud platform. I've used AWS for a lot of stuff in the past, but Firebase is what I'm using on recent projects. And on top of that, it's basically at its core, it's JavaScript and style sheets.
Yeah, speak to the AI. You said Claude. I'm not experienced using that. I've only used ChatGPT and a little bit of some other ones, but really just ChatGPT.
Yeah, and Cursor is a programming IDE, so it's just a piece of software you put on your laptop. It's probably a web-based version of it, and so really all it's doing is looking at the software files, which are individual text files, and then you have a sidebar with Claude running in it, or you can pick pretty much any LLM, so you can run GPT in it, you can run Opus in it, you can run all sorts of other things. But at the recommendation of some friends, I grabbed Claude Sonnet 3.5 this summer. I think we're at 4 on Sonnet now. And I'm just telling it, like, help me design a piece of software, and don't start building it yet. But this is my neighbor and friend Nick taught me this kind of prompting series. Help me design it and ask me some questions about it. And it basically asks every great question that a software team would have asked me, and I answer all of them. And for many of them, I say, I don't know the answer to that. You pick. And then we get a plan. We save the plan to a markdown file. And then I close that chat and I open a new chat and I load the markdown file into it with the plan. And I say, build this. And it builds
also
it.
in Claude.
Inside Cursor, using Claude as the LLM. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Cursor is the actual development app. And Claude is taking everything else over from there. So I put it on auto run, auto execute. So it's just building, it's testing, it's like, hey, I built a new interface. Now I'm loading the interface. I'm checking to see if the thing I built is actually there. I see it's there. All right, why don't you check it out now? Fires up my web browser in another window, pops up Chrome, loads the actual local server version of the app, pulls up the screen for me and says, please go check and make sure that's what you wanted. And then I say, oh, there's something wrong with the nav bar. It's overlapping the content. And it's like, my bad. I moved the nav bar up. You're good now. It's very conversational. It's very conversational. Now, that said, it's more than that. I'd say 5 out of 100 times. So 1 out of 20, I run into something that requires a little bit of technical knowledge. I find Claude getting stuck in a loop where it's like, I fixed it. Nope, you didn't fix it. Okay, now I fixed it. And I find it like trying the same A and B things back and forth again. And I'm like, okay, we're not going to get anywhere with this. So I either have to be explicit and tell it not to do A or B and find something else again. Or sometimes I have to do a little bit of looking under the hood. And it's been pretty rare. Probably, I built 5 web apps this summer from scratch with Claude and Cursor. And probably once in each of those, I had to like dig in deeply and find something and be like, no, you're wrong about this because on this line of code says this. And then it'll be like, oh yeah, all right. Now given that, here's how I would solve it. And then it solves it correctly. It was just missing some little piece of context. And I also find it, I don't know if I can use the word lying, but I also find it exaggerating things sometimes. So I spent a lot of time this summer analyzing data in a big data set that I have at Dory. So it's a 5-year study of 417 business leaders. And some of the visualizations that I would have it build is it looked at the data. So I want to understand the data in this way. I want to understand the relationship between pressure and mental reserve levels and like build a model that puts a score on these things for me. And then I'll see the data for the first time when it pops up and I'm like, wow, it's taken millions of data points and built some way to visualize it for me. And it's using some sort of like statistical analysis that it recommended. And I'm looking at the data for the first time and I'm wowed by it. And then after a few minutes of looking at the data, I go, it doesn't make any sense for my data set. I don't think my data set has that data in it based on other ways that I've looked at it. And then I'll say, where are you getting those pressure data points from? And it's like thinking. And it's like, oh, I created a synthetic data model for pressure values. I'm generating them for you.
Yeah, I just made it up.
Made it up. And I'm like, no, I told you to use this data set. And then it'll, it's always so flattering. It'll be a great idea. I'll use the real data now instead of my synthetic data model. And so it can get you in trouble if you don't challenge it a little bit. And there's just that little bit of knowledge still left needed to kind of look under the hood and say like, show me that data point right before you put it on the graph. And like, that's not the same one. Like, how did it change? Oh, my bad. I'll fix it. So I'm catching little things like that. But I'll tell you, it's not entirely different than working with a software team where they wouldn't make a synthetic data model and pass it off as if it was real, but they would accidentally pass something back as an array instead of an object and have the programming language interpret it the wrong way accidentally and show the wrong data point on the screen.
Sure.
And it's a very common type of mistake that can look correct but isn't actually correct. So it's not entirely different than working with humans. There's similar challenges, and having a little bit of leadership knowledge about how to like ask good questions and challenge what you're getting, I think is overlapping perfectly here in the digital world now.
How would you describe your relationship with AI?
I'm trying not to fall for all its flattery, because every time I recommend that it does something, even when I'm correcting its mistakes, it tells me it's a great idea.
Some people on this podcast have referred to AI as a sycophant, like a butt kisser.
Yeah.
Hey, let me just tell you what you want to hear to be in your good graces. And then behind the scenes, maybe I'm not operating in that friendly way that I'm trying to appear.
Yeah, I think it's falling for the same sort of challenges we get into with information bias when we have a belief already and we click on things in social media that align with that belief, and then we see 100x more things that align with that belief, and that makes us feel like our belief is even more true. And so I think AI is falling into that exact same sort of pattern where in Cursor, it will actually say like, hey, you've asked the last 10 times that the button I'm creating be blue. So do you want me to remember that as a rule, that every time you ask for a button, should I just make it blue? And I can say yes or no. And so those are a little more of the like visible things that it's learning about me. But you can tell behind the scenes, it's learning lots of other things about how to please me in terms of what I'm asking for. And it's getting better and better at that. So yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I can tell you in terms of running a community of high performers and people that are trying to optimize their minds for being maximally healthy and happy and productive at the same time, there are a lot of people in our community using these tools, and I've seen a few of them really fall prey to almost relationship level connection and reliance on AI systems, saying things that just really at a human level don't make sense, but believing them fundamentally because of conversations that they've had with AI systems.
Now in Grok and maybe other AIs, it can act like a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, and where are we heading when it comes to relationship with AI?
Yeah, that's a huge question. The mind is powerful. Our minds don't know whether a thought is really happening or it's just something we're thinking about. And so I think we can get a lot of what we need at a human level from conversations that we fundamentally know aren't real or with real humans. So I think there's a place for something there. I don't know if I'm not going to say it's going to replace real human relationships. Like that's, I think, way too far, but can it provide some value? Can it provide similar value to like what a therapist or a coach would provide? I think certainly. Like, I don't think that my therapist necessarily, other than being a good human, has a massive incentive to provide me with the assistance that she provides, other than our economic relationship. If I stopped paying her, I wouldn't expect her to show up. And so that's not too dissimilar to a relationship with an AI, in that there is a human behind that specific therapy relationship, but the motivations maybe aren't as entirely different.
Where do you find your boundary today with AI?
I'm using it for everything I can. I think my boundary around some of my health stuff now, I'm really starting to pull back on using AI for health answers, and not the absolute answer, but I was using it more for brainstorming. Like, what are the 3 things that I should be thinking about with this? And then I would use experts to help narrow that down, or I'd use it to double check the experts of like, hey, what about, you mentioned these 2, but what about this other thing? Okay, that's not relevant here because of this. All right, great, that's helpful. And sometimes they go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'll make sure to put that in your next blood lab. Let's make sure to look at that too. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I got good ideas here.
I got a good idea. Yeah, but as many times as they were good ideas, there was as many that were bad ideas. Where it's like, well, that's just not relevant to your situation because of this other context. And I usually don't fess up that where I got the idea from. It's just like, I was doing some reading about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm definitely drawing the line there where I'm not taking actual medical advice from AI.
Sure.
And I also wouldn't be using AI to write code on like mission critical finance apps or something that was already huge at scale without being able to like line by line code level review its work. I'm comfortable using it with like small prototypes that I'm building and things that I want to test in front of a user audience, and even production code. But it's starting to get a little more gray there of like, do I deploy this with real customer data into a production environment without ever looking at a line of code that was written myself? That makes me concerned.
So you shared one of your superpowers is creativity. Do you see where AI can help some with the creativity, and maybe an over-reliance can hinder it?
I think it's a great thought partner right now. I'm loving that from like when I say, help me design this application and ask me any questions you have. It's funny because it always responds with either 10 or 20 questions, which I found is like a pattern it's really stuck in. So it's not deciding maybe here are the most important questions, but it's like, I have 10 questions for you. Sometimes the last 3 are pretty dumb. So it's got this like fixed thing that it needs to go towards. But yeah, in terms of that, I think it's a great partner for creativity where it's saying like, would you potentially want to add these features to this system later? Oh yeah, like I hadn't thought about those features. In my normal brain where time and money is how we build software, and those numbers are relatively high, they're in weeks and months and the dollars are in the thousands, I'm not thinking as big. And so then the AI is asking me, well, would you ever want to build this blah, 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 really complex thing on top of it? And I'm like, well, yeah, that'd be a pipe dream. And I realize, oh, well, the AI could just build that for me in 20 minutes. So yeah, I might actually want to build that in the future. So thanks for helping bring that creative idea to the forefront that I was honestly thinking too small. I find it super useful in helping consolidate thoughts. So I have, you probably experience this too when you're out in nature. Do you have ideas that just pop into your head at a higher rate than other types of environments? So I'll be like this summer I was hiking on a couple mountains and I would get separated from the group a little bit and find myself alone in these moments. And then I would have this idea about something work-wise. So like, oh, here's how I could explain this, or here's how I could build this. And so I've gotten in this habit now of just pulling out voice memo on my iPhone and just blabbing into it. And so some of these notes are like, hey, the way I think about explaining this would be, comparing it to this other type of analogy. Oh, look, there's a bighorn sheep. Okay. And then the other, like, those are my notes going into it just vocally, like, oh, I saw a marmot.
Were you seeing bighorn sheep?
Yeah. Where'd I see? I don't know if I saw any this summer. Yeah.
I saw some out by, where did I go to? Avalanche Ranch. Have you ever been there?
No, but that's familiar.
That's out by, kind of by Aspen area, Paonia area.
Okay.
That's my favorite hot springs in. in Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I saw some on the banks of the Green River now. I'm thinking
They look like
in
linebackers.
Split
They
Canyon.
look like they could run through a
Yeah, these huge
car.
shoulders.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah, they're amazing. So yeah, I'm recording these notes and they're like, something like 17 minutes long of me just kind of rambling. And so as a partner in that, I think AI is incredible. So I take that note transcript that iPhone transcribes, paste it in a GPT, and I say, tell me what my point was here.
So you'll use GPT for that one?
I'll use GPT for that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do you choose which AI you're using and when?
I've just been categorically using Claude to write code.
Okay.
And I've been using GPT for more writing type, conceptual consolidation, summarizing, things like that. I don't know which one's right or wrong. I mean, I've heard Claude's better at coding, actual language syntax work and structure. Yeah, that's worked out so far.
Yeah. What risks do you see for people that over depend on AI, or if they like for me, when I was a traveling salesman for a long time, like door to door, and started in like 2010 with a GPS, a Garmin GPS. I became very reliant on that GPS very quickly to where this is in the Chicagoland area. I'm like, I don't know how to get anywhere without this GPS.
Yeah.
Is AI, is there a risk that AI becomes that kind of GPS where we lose how to, there's memes online where people don't know how to even talk to each other without like, hey AI, Aaron just said this to me, and then you're using, oh, Steven just said this to me, and we're just AIs talking to AIs.
Yeah. Yeah, was it? I think that was the second or third South Park episode this season, right? Where the husband and wife were using GPT instead of talking to each other, and then the wife started. What did she do? She started like the things she wanted to say, like using the GPT voice to say it to her husband because he was only listening to GPT. Yeah.
And then people run out of credits if they're like on a free version, and it's like, nope, you can't use it anymore. Then they just like malfunction.
They're like, I can't human anymore. I must human with robotics assistance.
And then I've had a cousin who was in high school maybe just 5-6 years ago, and she said the kid. Oh, you've got young kids, and I wonder how they're communicating today. And I know they're very nature based, and you've instilled that in them. But my cousin, public Chicago high school, said the guys are like texting the girls that are at the same lunch table. They're like, the communication is really just deteriorating, it seems like.
My friend Taylor was in one of the companies in a Techstars cohort like 5 years ago here before LLMs became really big publicly, and was using some LLM tools to allow people to respond to each other in dating apps. And so that concept of like that initial like toss out of like, hey, let's start a conversation was something like witty that was developed by an LLM to help them get a response back, right? So like it's become fundamental to some people's experience, and like there are married people now where their original conversation with each other probably wasn't human, but they've gotten connected. And that doesn't mean the foundation is rotten. It just means like that's how it started.
My girlfriend now, Chelsea, we met on a dating app, and I had used like AI enhanced photos of myself.
Yeah.
And a couple of them, like maybe there's 5, and 3 of them were like AI enhanced. Because I was like, maybe this will give me like an edge. Well, who knows?
Yeah.
And then like 2 of them were real. And she's like, I knew those were AI photos, but I gave you a chance because of those real ones.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So she's still putting some value on real.
Yeah. And I think people can tell. I kind of like A/B test. Okay, I'm gonna write a post that I just write, and then I'm gonna have ChatGPT write a post, and it's like I get 10 times the amount of likes and because there's like heart in it. There's like people I think we could still tell when that things are real, but I'm getting tricked all the time, especially now with Sora.
Yeah, I think it's going to change pretty quickly.
I think so.
I think we have to let go of that expectation that we will be able to tell, because at some point it's going to happen.
Where do you think there's a play? I want to come back to where we were just at, but what do you think the place of podcasts are in the future?
Yeah.
Because there's already podcasters that are starting to put out AI versions of their podcast that are doing really well, where it's like, okay, let me just dump 500 hours of my podcast into ChatGPT or whatever they're doing, and now create a whole show for me and put it in my voice and edit it and all of that. And
or it's easy for you to get me as a guest on this show, but it's a lot harder to get Albert Einstein as a guest on the show. But with AI, you can read everything you ever wrote and everything that ever came out of his head and try and put him in this chair and let you have a conversation.
And you're a big guest for me too, just so you know.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's things that aren't possible. I think about things like, artists after they die could still make original arts through their officially licensed LLM artist or AI artist version of them. Mm-hmm. So they allow one LLM or one sort of system to be trained on all of their art. And, I could have a commission piece from my favorite artist who's been dead for 100 years. That's kind of cool. Like, I think that's interesting. And then everybody else could just be scraping images of all the rest of the art and getting the public unlicensed version of it and probably get something very similar to what I got. But it wouldn't be the official one, right? So there's some value in authenticity. But then what does authenticity mean when a machine built it instead of a human? I think there'll be a bit of a transition from it has to be human to be authentic to a human approved this non-authentic replicator. It's like Da Vinci's favorite, fraud artist that tries to make copies of Da Vinci's, right? Mm-hmm. Like if before his death he'd said, this one person is my top apprentice and anything they make I will bless as officially mine. Mm-hmm. There's more value in that than you and I being really good painters and trying to rip off a Da Vinci. And so, yeah, I think there's... what was your question again?
Just what do you think? What do you think the value of doing this in-person content is?
Yeah, from the podcasting side.
On the podcasting, because I'm really enjoying it, and I'm hoping that it can get some legs, and I'm learning through it and connecting deeper with friends. And there's so much value that I'm getting out of this. I'm like, man, I hope these podcasts don't go away.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so much value in a deep conversation. So whether it's a podcast and we're recording it, or you and I are sitting next to a campfire on a river and we're in a conversation that's this deep because we're not distracted by any of our digital devices or whatever it is. So I think there's something really powerfully human in that. And I think there's something therapeutic to all of our brains, us as kind of leaders of this conversation, and then also anyone else passively participating by listening, and that it causes this arc of thinking and attention and focus to just be extended way out. And we started this conversation talking about our content creation and how even podcasts like this, like the things that will get people's attention to them will be 10-second clips. Mm-hmm. And so if we are always watching 10-second clips on things, we don't really learn that much. Yeah. And we try and kind of synthesize stories and beliefs in our mind that are the cumulative, addition of all of these 10-second clips, which lack depth. And so this format in general of a much longer conversation, I think, allows us as participants us as leaders of the conversation to go deeper, and allows participants to go on a journey that's going to be unlike anything else out there, because everything is getting smaller and smaller. And it's part of why I think podcasts have kind of risen in popularity in the last 2 to 3 years, because we're all just kind of dying for a little more depth and substance in the time. It's not to say that you and I are going to say something brilliant today that you can't get anywhere else, but we're going to keep batting these ideas around. And you're already asking me like 4 follow-up questions on the same thing to a level that makes me think more about it, and then it brings up another idea for you. And there's something different about that than a 10-second clip. So I think it's like I started by using the word therapeutic around that. Like I think that's good. Our brains are getting stuck in this instant dopamine cycle from these short clips. And if we can extend that back out and kind of quiet down that craving for give me the point and give it to me now, and don't waste my time. And the definition of waste is 3 seconds or more. Like I could be watching a funny cat video or someone falling off a skateboard right now. So you better give me the point about this conversation fast. I want it now.
Is there any other line for you with AI? So we're on iPhone 17 now. Say iPhone 25, they're like, we can plug this thing right into your brain. Do you want this thing plugged into your brain? Now you don't even have to type anymore. You just think it. You just got this over layer of AI. Instead of it being a side panel on your desktop, it's now in your brain.
Yeah. I think a lot of us will do it. If you're asking, do I want that? It seems like it's going to come with some serious concerns.
Yeah, if you don't pay the $20 fee a day, you're going to wake up to Taco Bell ads.
Yeah.
Just running in your brain.
Exactly. Or your brain's going to only run at like 20% of what you wanted it to run. It's the old iPhone, processing speed slowdown trick that they were running on us for years of like, you better buy the new one. Yeah, this old one just isn't working like it used to.
Yeah.
They were slowing our processors, right?
Yeah.
They were caught doing this in the name of compatibility. They're like, oh, that just made it, work better with the new software. Like, no, like they were incentivizing us to go buy the new one, right? So yeah, where does that go? Yeah, the doomsday scenario of this is we become dependent on all of these for our cognitive ability, for our reasoning ability, and for what we need out of human relationships. And then that's where we go for all of these things because it's easier and faster as long as we pay. And this becomes like a serious addiction at the human cognitive, at the brain, at the emotional level, where we just depend on these systems because human relationships are hard. Like I might say something today in our conversation that makes you so angry at me you never want to hang out with me ever again. But I can't do that with an LLM that I'm paying $10 a month to. It will happily take my money. So there will be too much risk in real, and people are drawn to fake because it's easier and it's safer, and you just have to pay for it. So I think there's some serious concerns there. I think there's a lot of upside. There's a huge upside in terms of making us all superhuman. And that's a definition I use in my work now in looking at people and how they respond and how their mental resilience powers their minds. And, we are disabled by pressure. That's what happens in our lives. There's some of the smartest people in the world. You can run up and start yelling at them, and they'll respond in such a way that their cognitive power goes almost to zero. And you can take a person with below average intelligence that has super strong resilience and is used to everyone screaming at them in their face and put them in the same scenario, and they can outperform the genius 10 out of 10 times. And so mental resilience is this kind of enabler, disabler of performance for all of us because we're constantly getting assaulted by things yelling at us in this always on world. And so what we can do with machines to maybe counter that, I think will be interesting. Like, can it make us more resilient at a fundamental level? If it can change our beliefs or what we think we believe, then it can dial that up with a piece of software. That's some creepy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's, and I think anything could happen. Who knows what's going to happen? But I'm just finding that the more I use ChatGPT, the more my creativity decreases.
Yeah.
That it's easy to fall into the trap of, hey, I don't even want you to be a thought partner. I want you to just figure it out for me because I've got this forever to-do list.
Yep.
And just figure it out for me. And then I'm like, whoa, I'm getting like more anxious, I'm losing patience, and I'm not really even liking the answers that this thing's giving me. I want it to like figure it out, but it's not really doing that good of a job.
Yeah, I would imagine in all of us there's a little bit of belief in the reality that it's making mistakes. And so we can trust it and rely on it. And the more we trust and rely on it, the more we're kind of baking into the model. It might be off by 1%. And when you do that once, that's fine. But when you have it come up with the idea, explain the idea to you, expand the idea, and then build it, and then take it out to scale and stamp out 1,000 copies of it, that 1% mistake could be massive. It's the old Ray Kroc franchise model where, all the burgers might have looked fine in the first store, but by the time you get to the 1,000th iteration of it, the burgers all come out as hockey pucks or something instead. It's like, whoops, we were off by a little bit. And now when we take this further and further, so I would imagine in the back of all of our minds, there's a little bit of a concern of like, man, can I keep getting away with this? Like, there's a little bit of a gamble every time we ask it and we rely on the answer without checking the details.
If you were to give a State of the Union, say, on AI, maybe even our society, the U.S., what would that 5 years from now? And you're looking at your crystal ball now. What does the U.S. look like right now? Like, who's working? Who's like the most successful? Where are the jobs gone? How are people spending their time? What's like the health? In any type of way. If you're to give a State of the Union 5 years from now, what are you saying?
Yeah, I think there's going to continue to be this separation between people that realize these tools could be lying to us and move in the opposite direction, like use them very sparingly, and then people that see enough opportunity in front of them that they don't care if it's lying some of the time, and they're willing to jump all in for what they'll be able to gain from it, which could potentially move those people forward in lots of meaningful ways. But I think it could potentially be as addictive as a drug at some point. And so, we're seeing people, not letting kids have devices at such an early age. We're seeing people pull back from digital experiences into more human experiences. We're seeing more people get together around a campfire than, get together at the loud sports bar. Like the trends are for a certain subset of people that are aware of this are really in the direction kind of away from this stuff. They're pulling back. And it feels to me, the bit of the analogy is it feels a bit like smoking as a hobby and a habit and an addiction among a population where everybody smoked and a lot of people said it was bad and everybody was like, it's kind of fun. So who cares? And the advertisers made it look cool. And so we were all like, that's cool. And this is probably like my grandparents' generation maybe going through this as I think about it. And then over time, it was like, wow, that might not be good for you. And then after 20, 30 years of it, it was like, wow, there's some like really clear science that this just gives you lung cancer. So you probably don't want to. And then it found its place in the the rebels and the renegades and the people that are like, I just don't care about the risk, and that's fine. And so it'll still kind of always exist in a small component. And I wonder, will social media and potentially even AI, but probably social media more, become the next smoking? Is it the thing that we're going to start, running the truth campaigns for on TV in 10 years of don't do social media, man. Here's the real data on it. And the data is already really compelling among children.
It is, but it's too addictive.
It's just too addictive. And it's not great for adults either.
No.
But it's just awful. I mean, the increased risk of anxiety and depression and all of these challenges in youth. And the younger they have exposure to it, the worse their outcomes are in the kind of early adulthood ages when they try and figure out how to cope with it. And just we're seeing that already starting in the number of 18 to 25 year olds, I would say, is where I'm seeing it in people I interact with through my work. That are mostly entrepreneurs, but that have just unplugged. They're like, I don't do Instagram anymore. I don't do any of these things, or I had to take a break from this, or they're thanking their parents for taking the device away from them, in the same way that we might have seen people interacting with other addictive things in a past generation, and realizing how much better off they were when they separated themselves from it. So back to your question of where does this go in the next 5 to 10 years? I would like to think we're all going to be artists, and we're all going to have a lot of time because of what machines will be able to do for us. They'll automate all of the more basic work that needs to be done, and we'll get to sit around and think about the future and figure out how to express that to each other. So we'll all be painting, and we'll all be dancing, and we'll all be singing, because that's how we'll be human with each other.
And who's paying for that?
I was hoping you were going to pick up the tab.
I mean, invite me to one of your rafting parties.
Exactly. I know.
That sounds great.
It wouldn't be a lie to say my answer to that is I'm just going to get on my raft and float off into a canyon in the wilderness. Which now might be a busy place because nobody has to go to work anymore, and everyone realizes the value of reconnecting with nature. So that might be where everybody is, actually. There might not be solace out there. That might be the party now. I don't know. Yeah, how do we pay for it? I don't know. I think that's above my pay grade.
I mean, I've heard universal basic income. That's
those are all reasonable ideas people are putting out there, I think. Yeah. I haven't gone deep on thinking about that, so I'll punt on that one.
What type of jobs do you think will be most desired 5 years from now? I've have some recent grads around me, and some of them express how challenging it is to get a job right now. And it's like, oh man, you kind of got a job in something that's already been outsourced to AI.
Yeah. I heard this. There's some sort of battle going on, I guess, between one of the big banks and private equity. Because everybody that comes out of college gets hired into these big investment banks or something like that, or maybe it was the consulting track or whatever. But apparently private equity is realizing how data-driven their world is, and so they're pulling over these quants from the other side And so they're fighting over these college grads from the top universities with the top brains to a level that has caused them to have this standoff where there's some sort of agreement where like private equity has agreed not to take people from consulting to the next year or something. I don't know. They must have gotten together in New York and drank some overpriced drinks together in some lounge and decided this. But there's this like kind of, they've paused on like poaching from each other for a year or something is some general agreement. And everyone thinks what's really happening behind the scenes is private equity is basically saying, we think a year from now, we're not going to need these people anymore.
Oh, wow.
So we are willing to actually put in the work to try and move away from our entire like quant intelligence force and move to machines. And so that's going to be a big change. Like there's going to be all of these complex jobs that require analyzing huge amounts of data and huge amounts of thinking might not need people anymore.
What type of art would you be creating? I mean, you already are a bit of an artist. I know that you've, in the past few years, learned to sing and play the guitar.
Yeah, yep. I've been singing and learned piano along the way as kind of part of music theory. Yeah, so very basic at so many of those musical things, but it's amazing the amount of joy I get out of them, despite being a real hacker and just kind of learning the basic stuff. But yeah, I'm working on some songwriting right now. I've hired a really talented songwriter to come help me this fall. I'm starting actually in 2 weeks on that, and so yeah, I think putting my observations from life into songs and putting them to music, I think is a really fun way for me to help understand them and express them and share them without saying to people, here's what I think about something, to instead say like, here's some poetry with music to it and take away from it what you will. I think that's a really interesting way to be in the world as an artist. Yeah, writing, songwriting, singing, fostering connection and helping people push their limits, whether that's guiding or whether that's some of my like professional work with Dory, helping people understand themselves better. I think there's a lot of art in that. There's a little bit of science and a little bit of tooling and measurements we can bring to that, but there's a lot of observation and connection and understanding in that. Time in nature, connection with nature. I think that's my showing people how to do that and just doing it myself. I think there's some very solo art in just being in the wilderness. I think there's art in that example of pushing the raft off of a shore that I mentioned earlier. Like we get in the raft, we push off, and we just be with nature. And there's nothing to really show for that in the end, which I think also is an interesting type of art. Like it's like a sculptor that has the art is thinking about the sculpture and how it would be built and experiencing it, but never building it. What is that? I don't know.
You shared in nature, you get a lot of ideas. They flow through. Why do you think that is? What's happening there?
I think it's the fear center turning off. I think it's the dopamine loop that's constantly chasing validation and quick hits of dopamine turning off. I think when those things they don't really go away, when they decelerate, when they slow down, and when they stop being the top patterns in the mind gets sort of expansive. And so I think the mind wants to run. And so it starts throwing ideas into the mix. It's like, instead of saying, hey, where's my next fix? It instead goes, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, how about this idea? Have you thought about this?
And do you think that could be coming from anywhere else? That idea is coming into us from maybe a higher place?
Yeah. I think there is there's something that's happening in nature that engulfs us. It doesn't feel like when I'm in the wilderness that I'm in an empty place. It feels like I'm connected into everything. So what is that? I don't know. Yeah. Is it coming from the plants, Stephen? Is it coming from the river, the water? Is it coming from spirituality in the universe? Is it coming from energy that exists in everything? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe in that we're all connected. And for me, in my spiritual path, God speaks to me first through intuition. So all of a sudden this knowing or this idea, or it's like I'm more of a clear channel when I'm in nature. I'm more like clean for these ideas, thoughts, knowings to come through. I'm all buzzed up and discombobulated when I've got 3 screens open and I'm trying to message something. It's like I could way overstimulate myself and nothing's coming through. Spirit, God isn't coming through. So I think that's the number one way that God speaks to me and all of us is through intuition. It's hard to sometimes listen. And when I don't listen, it will show up. The next level is typically in my dreams. And then it will show up in like a synchronicity. And then finally it's like a big like kind of like hit over the head. Like, okay, you're going to get an offender bender now. And now you got to really listen because you've got a purpose here and something that there is for you to learn and to keep you on this right path. We're helping to guide you on that path. So I try to catch the lesson, the learning earlier on, and nature is where I can hear it the most clear.
Yeah. Can I share something here that was a wild experience I had in this last year?
This is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
We're just all warming you up for just this.
I love this. Yeah. Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, a company I'm deeply passionate about because I founded it in 2018. It's USDA organic freeze-dried microgreens for everyday nutrition and detox. Sprinkle them on any meal or take them as a capsule to enjoy the many healthy benefits. Shop now at bmicro.farm. Use code STEVE15 to save.
Well, I've only shared this with a couple of people because it's really wild and it's hard to explain, but I'll try and explain it here.
Thank you.
It aligns with what you're talking about there. This sort of like feedback coming through intuition or kind of sensing something. And I liked how you said, you weren't like sensing it like in this exact moment, like here is the message coming to me from above, but more of like through a variety of situations and circumstances, you're kind of getting the same story. And then you're like, wow, let me sit back for a moment and realize there's a theme across these. And
maybe I should listen.
There's some wisdom in that. Yeah, I should be paying attention to. So my journey in the last year, 84 days of chemotherapy, took me to the absolute brink of existence, maybe. Certainly in terms of fear, certainly in terms of pressure and intensity. This journey started by my diagnosis a year ago, and my recent stories right up until that point were 2 friends in the last 5 years that have passed away during chemotherapy from the chemotherapy. Wow. So from the medicine that was supposed to be curing them. And I'm not saying that means that these were bad drugs. It was just that's how hard this path is. The path to healing can kill us on this unfortunate type of disease. And so that's the belief I started this with, going into this is dangerous stuff. And it is my path forward. After looking at all the logic and reason around it, this was the path forward. And so here I went. And they said there's going to be 5 chemotherapy drugs. And 2 of them are going to cause you to have to be in the hospital because we can't dose you with these things and send you home at night because they're too dangerous. Wow. One can stop your heart and is associated with people needing heart transplants. And their heart will never beat again. It can also damage your heart in lots of other ways that aren't that serious, but are still serious. And the other one can destroy your brain. And so we have to observe you 24/7 while we're administering these drugs to look for signs of these things starting so we could try and potentially get ahead of the damage if it's happening. We can't have you sitting at home when it happens. Even more terrifying. So I go through this journey and months of this, and they hit you with rounds of it, and then you try and recover, and they hit you with rounds of it, and you try and recover. And with each step of it, I'm going a little deeper and a little darker in terms of energy. I'm probably sleeping 16 hours a day at one point, and it takes the color out of life. It's part of trying to heal. The color's back, by the way. So that's great news for anyone else who unfortunately has to start this journey.
Yeah, you seem vibrant and healthy and in a good way.
Yeah, and just so energized for life. And like it didn't take that stuff away, but it borrowed it for a while. Yeah. It needed every bit of it. Like life kind of looked black and white for some weeks in there.
And could you explain chemo a little bit more? It's the killing of the cancer, but it's also kind of killing everything.
Yeah. My understanding of it and through this journey was that it's the drugs that I took were different types of drugs that were targeted both for getting good access to the location where the cancer was in my body. There's certain types of chemotherapy medicine that like don't go to certain regions or don't go to whatever or don't permeate certain types of membranes or something. Mm-hmm. And so, like one of the drugs I was on was based on platinum, the metal, called cisplatin.
Sounds fancy.
And so, I tasted metal for a while around that one. Yeah, not great. And that one just was really good at targeting this part of the body where the tumor was found. And then the other component of it is, in general with them, they're meant to kill fast replicating cells. So they're meant to target the DNA, I guess, or target cells that have this certain type of fast replicating DNA and kill them. And so there's lots of things in our body that are fast replicating. Hair follicles, for instance, which is why many chemo patients lose their hair. Mucous membranes, which is why many chemo patients have awful GI issues because your GI tract is full of cells that create mucus to make everything work well in there. And so a lot of these side effects are just coming from that. Those are the cells that are fast replicating, and chemo kills them. Cancer is often fast replicating. Chemo can kill it.
I think you look great bald, by the way.
Thank you.
It's a strong look.
Thank you. Yeah. I like to say I
lost
a lot through this cancer journey. I was bald going into this. So. That was one of the ones I wasn't too worried about. I was like, "You're telling me I'm going to lose some of this chest hair I have to trim? I'm in." That was all upside for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what I want to share with you is that in this transformation and kind of like life being stripped down to more and more simple and more simple. And it's such amazing support through it. But my brain also kind of changed a bit during it. And when I was able to, it was like a detox. Like I wasn't able to safely be around other people for months because if I'd caught anything viral, and my diagnosis was in October last year. So the start of cold and flu season with 2 school-age kids, I find out that basically my immune system, so immune cells also die because they're fast replicating. Mm. So it's why chemo patients become really susceptible to viruses that can kill them. And so one of my 2 friends that died during chemo was because he got just a very standard infection that any of us could fight off, and it killed him because his immune system was dialed down because of the chemotherapy fighting the disease in his body. And so in this state where I couldn't be around people, I could still have conversations, although talking on the phone for more than 15 minutes was exhausting for much of this journey. So I do quick check-ins and texts, and so that all worked well. But this kind of like deeper in-person conversation went away for months. It was almost, despite the amount of support and love that I had, which I felt to this incredible level, I also was incredibly alone on this journey. Even with people standing right next to me, felt really alone on the journey. And the only people standing next to me for months and months were my wife and my kids and my parents who came out to help out. Wow. And everybody else was at a distance. And the first time I went out to a restaurant with some friends after I was immune levels back to normal again. We're watching this in my blood labs, and I'm through the chemotherapy and I'm through the big surgery, and I'm getting great news that we don't see any evidence of disease and everything's feeling good, but my immune system hasn't recovered yet. My red blood cell counts are low and my hemoglobin's low. There's other things that get taken out. And I'm waiting for these levels to come back up. And like to a large degree, I felt pretty good and pretty normal again. But, walking upstairs, I would get tired. So then levels come back to normal again. And I'm like released back into the world. Like I could be around somebody with a cold and I would survive for the first time in months. And so I started going out in public. And I went to Jack's on Pearl Street with some friends for the first time. Really dear friend and a neighbor as well. And I'm sitting there at the bar and I'm looking around, and I related to people differently than I ever have in my entire life in that moment. And I didn't know what it was at first. And I said something to them that night that I'm not sure was true, but this is what it felt like to me in that moment. I was like, guys, this is a strange thing to say, but I can see everybody in this room's souls.
Wow.
Like I was seeing something different in people. And I don't know if it was through the journey that I'd been through that had changed something, or if it had been the isolation and I hadn't been in a room of people that I didn't know, like a room of strangers with smiles on their faces. Yeah. I'd been in a chemotherapy infusion center where there's a few smiles, but they're hard to come by. Yeah. And I'd been the one guy trying to make jokes and keep it lighthearted with a main line hooked into my heart, administering medicine.
Wow.
But now as I got back out into public again, I saw something different in people. And damned if it didn't go away about a month later. I lost it. Yeah. Yeah. Like people almost had a color, almost like an aura you could describe.
Wow.
It wasn't energy. It wasn't, I don't know what it was, but there was just something I was seeing, like, when I was looking at someone talking across the room and I couldn't hear their words, I was understanding them somehow without even being able to hear it. It was something really, really interesting. And I don't know how to describe it, but
have you heard other people describe that before?
I haven't.
Wow.
I haven't. I don't know.
That would be an interesting. Tell it to the chat. Here's what's going on. Tell me what this is. I want to hear 100 interviews about this.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
It was something wild and something very human. And so I don't know what it was, but it stopped a couple weeks after that. And then going to a restaurant, I just saw people having conversations. I could see through them that day. I was like able to see, like, I don't know what, maybe like I could see that they were energy, and I could kind of just see through them. They were existing in a space, but they weren't what I used to expect with another person in a room. Yeah.
Did that change your opinion or beliefs on what the human is capable of, or who, or what we are, or did that shift you in any kind of a way? This new knowing?
I think it brought in this kind of continued appreciation of this, like, we are all energy concept, and everything is energy concept. Like I almost felt like in that moment, people didn't look like solid people. They looked like a collection of energy that was masquerading as a human in that moment. Like that's maybe the most logical way I can describe what I was feeling and experiencing in that moment. And it wasn't like I saw anything different in the room. It was just like what I was receiving from them through light across the room, and my ability to perceive wasn't the same. Like I was getting an additional channel.
Yeah.
And then damn thing turned off. Yeah.
What do you think pulled you away from it the most? Was it every time you looked at your phone, you moved away from it a little bit more? The screen, was it a...
I think it was that it became normal again to be around people.
Okay.
Because if there's one big thing I've noticed in my recovery so far, it's how quickly I start to take normal life for granted again. Going into this and being in the moment, I was just longing for like in-person human connection, and to have my big pool of friends like around me, or to just go out in public and see like two people laughing across a room and just get to feel that, right? Wow. Like I lost that for a period of time. And so it was so new. It was like I'd lived in a cave for just a couple of months, and coming back into that, like everything was so like vibrant and so colorful and so alive. And there was just some level of something I was getting from that was just like overwhelming, not in a bad way. It was like like fulfilling, or like filling my mind in a way of like there's 30 people in this room and they're all happy and having a good time. Like I in that moment was just so grateful to be in the same room as other humans, existing and living as kind of part of what I was feeling in that moment. And then the 10th time I went out in public and went to a restaurant, I was now just in a restaurant again. And those were just people having a good night out. And it wasn't astounding. That's what it was. Those first couple experiences, it was like astounding to see this. I almost felt like I wasn't alive in that moment, and I was looking at it from like death, looking back into life.
I think that'd make for a great song.
Should write a song about that.
I think that's a great song. That sounds like a hit to me. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder, others. I'm excited for you to find other people with a similar story, because I'm sure that's out there.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Did that journey give you any more insight into, or any insight into what this human experience is?
I think what it's given me is a massive amount of energy for the here and now. And I've always been a person who tries to be present and live in the moment. And I've always been a person who has a lot of energy for life and maximum experiences and trying to live an extreme life. and trying to lean into those moments. Pressure is privilege was a statement that came up this morning, and I love when I get to put myself in high pressure situations. Now, pressure isn't always privilege. Sometimes pressure just sucks. If you don't have enough to meet your basic human needs, that's pressure as well. But for a lot of us that can meet our basic human needs, we put ourselves into these situations where we can be in pressure. There's a deadline to produce or something like that. And so I take a lot of these opportunities that I walk myself into intentionally with a lot of appreciation and privilege. And so I think what I've gotten out of this is just this massive amount of energy, again, for building and creating, honestly, more than I've had in the last 10 years. So the 9 years before this last year, 1 year health journey so far, I didn't have the level of energy that I have for building and creating that I do now. It's just been this really fantastic reminder of how big of a gift now is, and to get to go create and to get to think. And I don't even really love delivering keynotes, but I've delivered my keynote twice in full form in the last week, and I've delivered it in short form an additional third time in the last week. Because even in the moments leading up to it, I go, yeah, why do I agree to do this? Like, this isn't my favorite thing. Like, I'd be nervous, or I don't know, like, if I'm going to do a good job, and like, why am I putting this pressure on myself? And then I get this really fresh dose of, because you're freaking alive, man. That's why you get to do this. Mm-hmm. And you know what? If you completely bomb today, like, that's a gift. Like, because you know who doesn't get to bomb? Yeah. People that aren't here anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
And I get to do this in this moment. Like, I get the full human experience. Like, if I have an awful day, I just got to have an awful day. Like, what a gift. Because an awful day is better than not having a day. So yeah, it's just made me so energized and so grateful. And I just am like trying to, and I'm feeling this pull back in the other direction of like, ooh, play it safe, or remember that fear of failure, like keep that going. Like, you could really mess up, or don't build that product. Nobody's going to like it. Or, and so I've got a healthy dose of that pushback now, and I want to keep it. It's something I really, really want to keep through all this, to that second voice that says, let's freaking go. Like, yeah, this might be a big bonfire of a disaster. And if so, like, let's bring s'mores.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
No one's even paying attention.
Yeah, no, everybody's living their
cares.
Everybody's living their story, right,
Yeah,
Stephen?
right.
Yeah, they're not living my story. They're all in their movie. Yeah.
Well, so you've been doing these keynotes. Share about some of these keynotes. Share what are you talking about? Like, what are people resonating with most as you're sharing?
Yeah, I've got this. The shorter form one right now is this around the concept of I've lived an extreme life. And so these parallels of some of these extreme business experiences that I've gotten to have, and many of them at a young age, which made them even more extreme. And then some of these really peak extreme experiences in my life, like going to Nepal and trekking to Everest Base Camp, and some of these big adventures I've been on through river canyons, and then my 2 rounds now with cancer, once in my 20s and cancer again in my 40s. And so I've just gotten to experience some really extreme things. And in both of my cancer diagnoses, I was able to catch things at a stage where we at least had a chance to try to fix the problem because of extreme things that I was doing. And because I was going to Everest, and because I needed high elevation medicine and emergency medicine and physical consult for vaccines and things I needed to go into this remote, wild place, as a 28-year-old, I went and saw some doctors to get prepared for this that I never would have seen as a 28-year-old, and caught that cancer. And I was able to catch it early enough that we were able to get me at least so far another 15 years out of that one.
Wow. Okay.
And this time around, this diagnosis is even scarier. This is a rare and aggressive cancer, and it's if I had been weeks or months later, I could have been in a very, very, very bad situation.
Wow.
With not much to do about it. And I had 2 experiences in the days leading up to it. One was a mountain biking trip down in Buena Vista with some friends, where I was going to a music festival, and the lead singer didn't show up. And so we decided not to go to much of the festival because the main band didn't have the main act. And so we decided to go mountain biking. And I didn't bring my mountain bike because I thought I was going to be at the festival the whole time. So I had to rent a mountain bike, which is fine, except they didn't have any reasonable mountain bikes. And my friends were able to get good bikes because they're a little shorter than I am, and they had mediums. And nothing in XL other than this one like jalopy they rolled out of the back, man. This thing had like road bike tires on it, front suspension only. I think it was a steel frame. It was like 12 years old and not in good shape. It wasn't shifting well. And they're like, this is all we got in your size.
It was $200 for the day.
Yeah, it probably was. And I said, all right, well, let's go. Like, this is great. This will make mountain biking harder and more fun. And so I rode all this rocky terrain up and down like boulders and jumping across things in this bike that was just beating me up, basically. And I had a great time. My friend said it was a 45-minute ride. 3.5 hours later, we finished. We ran out of water. We ran out of food. I was beat. I was dizzy. I was delirious. I swam in the Arkansas River, and I got some food, and I came back to life. And the next day, I got back to Boulder, and I joined my buddy in this sauna up in the woods high above Boulder in this aspen grove. It's wood-fired. We fired that thing up, and we did like the most serious sauna session I've done in a long time. I think it was like 195 in there for like an hour, and I never push it that long.
For an hour?
Oh, it was way too long. Yeah, and we went in and out a couple times,
okay.
But we were in there the majority of it. Maybe a couple 5-minute breaks. Yeah. And my sauna game's gotten pretty good the last couple of years. So I'm doing like 165, 175 for a half hour every day, but not the levels that we were at there. It was beautiful. We were having a great time out in the middle of the woods. You have to hike into this sauna. You actually park and hike a single track trail into it out into the middle of nowhere. And so I'm having a great time. So I push it a little too long, and I come out of there, and I'm like just woozy and dizzy. And I'm like, I got a little heat stroke, and get in my car and cool off. And I drive back down to Boulder. And the next morning is when I had the first symptom that led to this diagnosis. And I firmly believe that going on that crazy, brutal mountain bike ride and that incredibly baking sauna session shook this symptom loose weeks or months before we would have found this thing.
Wow.
It was hiding. It was hiding really, really well. And
can you share what it is?
Yeah, oh. yeah. I'm happy to share it, and I really want people to think about this too, in case anyone else shakes loose this type of symptom as well. And most of the time, it's actually nothing too bad. In fact, the first thing I heard from my doc is, this is probably nothing too bad. So I was actually meeting with some entrepreneurs that morning and had my first cup of coffee. We had an early start and was taking a bathroom break, and I just went in to go pee. And I peed pure red blood. Like there was no, like, I wonder if there's like
Did I just eat a bunch of beets?
Did I have too many beets today? This was in the zone of very clear, very, very obvious. And it looked like blood that had just left like an artery from my body.
Whoa.
It was just like bright red blood. And so that led me to go straight to a doctor. And so I made a lot of really good decisions after that I think most people would make. I would hope most people would make. But I've heard some stories about other people with the same diagnosis as me that they were like, yeah, they came in and said they've been peeing blood for 3 months.
Ooh.
I'm like, wow. Like I get, we have sometimes a distrust of the medical community or a lack of wanting to ask questions when we think the answer might not be good.
Yeah, or this will just go away on its own.
Maybe it'll go away. And honestly, my doc said, yeah, it's like a kidney stone or something, right? This happens. If you've been dehydrated recently, I was like, yeah, I just went on this mountain bike ride. Crushed me. I was so dehydrated, 95-degree heat in the desert, and he's like, oh yeah, totally. You've just like kicked up a kidney stone or something. Like we'll check it out and make sure. And, it was 5 days later when I got scoped and, they put a camera in there and they have it on the screen right next to you. And it was a chilling moment, man. I mean, it was, he goes, if you look left, you can see this is like the wall of your bladder. Oh, everything looks good over here. Oh, there's some air bubbles there. All right. And then he like pans to the right and there was a space alien living inside of me. I mean, it had tentacles. It looked like a mutant squid is what my tumor looked like. Yeah. 3.5 centimeters by I think its widest dimension. And it had just grown into the inside of my bladder. So it was growing into kind of, open space, which is why it hadn't thrown off a symptom up until that point. And it was chilling. I had never actually, I guess, seen cancer before. It was wild. It was in some ways like, if it wasn't cancer, I would say it was beautiful Like it had shapes and colors to it and different components, and it was obviously something like twisting out of control. Like it looked like two stars had collided or something like that. It had this wildness about it. It was hard to enjoy that in the context of what it was. Because in that moment, that's when the doc said, we're going to call that cancer and we're going to cut it out, and then we'll tell you if it's not.
And what is cancer?
Yeah, I guess in my understanding, it's cells that have lost their programming that tells them when it's time to die. And they're trying to hold on to life too long. Wow, that's deep when you think about what a cancer patient goes through, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So it's these cells that have forgotten that they're a part of a natural system in which they get to exist, and then they need to leave. They need to exit stage left and move on out and let the next ones come in.
What are maybe current mainstream beliefs, and if you have non-mainstream beliefs on where cancer comes from, what feeds it, what fuels it, what are some of the top causes for cancer?
Yeah, I've been pretty straightforward team doctor and team science on this with a healthy openness to what other ideas are. But in terms of treatment path, I went down what worked for me, or what I felt comfortable choosing, was give me things that are science backed, and then give me other ideas, and I will consider them if they will not conflict or potentially reduce the efficacy of the science-backed things. So, for instance, like some people suggested other medications I could take, or friends pointed me to things and resources and that I could take alongside chemotherapy that would potentially help, or other things like that. And my filter on any of those other things was like, it was kind of a yes and, but no if there's a risk that it's going to cause something else that's science-based to not work. So I'm willing to throw lots of things at this, but I also need to be mindful that none of this exists in a vacuum. And that, like for instance, in my first round of chemotherapy, they asked me to stop taking vitamin D and vitamin B. And those are things I've taken for a very long time for lots of health benefits and lots of reasons. And I looked at the oncologist and was like, these are helping me stay healthy through this journey. Like I need these things to help resist the negative impacts of chemotherapy. And the oncologist said, yeah, they protect all of your cells, your healthy ones and the cancer cells.
Wow.
And they will protect the cancer cells from the chemotherapy. Now, I've had other doctors tell me they've never heard anything like this before, but I was told that very clearly by one of my oncologists along the way. So that was an example of where I went, okay, like I can live without my supplementation for a couple of weeks while we get through the core of infusion, and then I can use it in the recovery period, so I can make an adjustment. So I thought about everything kind of from that standpoint of like, I want the science-based stuff to hit really hard. I want it to do exactly what it's supposed to do, and then I want to add other things to that. So yeah, in terms of just trying to figure out, where has this come from? My belief on it falls much closer to the scientific literature, I think, than lots of other ideas I've heard. I think there's a genetic component where sometimes people have certain types of DNA or genetics that cause their cells to be more likely to fall out of line and fall off the script. And then I think there's environmental components that cause DNA to get damaged. And, both of those things can cause cells to stop playing with the same sheet music that they need to play with.
So where you left off was the doctor said, okay, we got to take this cancer out immediately.
Yeah. With the cancer story overall.
Yes,
yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So the doc says, we're going to take this out. And so they took it out within, it was 3 days. It was a Friday when he said, this is likely cancer. You're going to have surgery. And I think I just, like, all the blood left my face. I was like, oh my gosh, another journey with cancer. Wow. Okay. Took me a long time to come to grips with, like, this is going to be the path again. We have to go through. There's no running away from this or around it.
What's the state of treating cancer today? How are they? I mean, obviously you're in a good way and it went good for you, but how is what do you understand around that?
Yeah, it's just getting so much better so fast. I think for myself, and I think a lot of other people going through cancer journeys right now, we're all just looking to like the next year. I mean, there's been new drugs released for my specific cancer in the 12 months that I've had this cancer, wow. Since my diagnosis. And those things are 20 years in the making, right? And the rate and the speed of which these things are coming to market is just getting faster and faster. And I think back to the earlier part of our conversation with AI and the ability to look at massive data sets and find the signal inside of the noise, is that ability is just increasing exponentially right now. Cool. So I think it's personalized medicine. I think it's genetic-based medicine. I was able, with my resources and knowledge and connections, to do things that I would imagine 99% of cancer patients today can't do. And I was so blessed to be able to see some of these technologies. There's things like personalized peptide vaccines that are not really easy to get in the U.S. outside of clinical trials. There's a few places in the U.S. There's some places in Germany where they're easy to get, but they cost $100,000 to get a dose of it. So this is not available to people in general.
I want to try right now.
Yeah, there's amazing technologies where, they take those and they match the peptides using an AI algorithm already that came from, I think, WashU, came up with this algorithm that matches peptides to the DNA of your tumor. Whoa. So my tumor had its DNA fully sequenced, and we found out what types of medications were likely to work with it or not. We found out what types of supporting medications, even from into painkillers to antibiotics, were more likely to work with the cells in my body based on the entire mapping of my tumor and the entire mapping of my healthy cells. And so that's where this stuff is going. We found out there's all sorts of drugs. I found out when a surgery I had 15 years ago and they kept giving me oxycodone, why it didn't work. It just doesn't work for me. And they found it in the genetic test. They were like, hey, FYI, don't take oxycodone for pain management because it actually doesn't do anything for pain management for you. And I said, oh my God, 15 years ago, I remember they gave me some in the hospital and they just kept giving me more and more and more. And I was like, I'm in so much pain. Can you give me more? This was all within an hour or multiple hours. And I had a toxicity and I coded and almost died in the hospital because they gave me too much of the drug. My blood pressure went to it was 260 over 220 or something.
And they didn't even know
how I survived that. I'm sure back then they just thought, well, some people don't do well with this drug. It's a rare side effect. Well, now we see in my genetics specifically, they're like, yeah, don't use that pain med. There's actually a different pain med that's very similar. And in this round of surgeries, I got to take that pain med. And I was like, oh my gosh, the pain all went away. I actually didn't know what pain meds were. They'd been giving me the wrong type for, in the past when I'd had surgeries. So there's so much power in data right now. And I think the drug development pace is going to speed up. The discovery pace is going to speed up. There are just... For any entrepreneur that's out there, whether they're young and thinking about starting a career in medicine and precision medicine, or whether they're already into their career and want to make a pivot, I would just love to ask people to consider this space and to continue to put resources into it. And I would love to also ask our government leaders to continue to fund rare cancers because we're going to be able to do things with them now that we've never been able to do with them before through this type of technology.
What's the state of government funding or government support in these ways?
It's down currently in the U.S. for sure. As a patient currently battling a rare cancer, it doesn't feel great to hear our government say that that's in the category of waste. Wow. And we're going to not spend there. So I won't evaluate the rest of it, but just in terms of what matters to me, that's difficult to hear. All of my treatment decisions were based on a study of 40 patients. That's how rare this is, 40. And, a lot of other people have awful health situations that are just as scary as mine, but they get to make decisions based on data that's across 800,000 people. And that's not necessarily something we can solve because this is just rare in and of itself. But my point is you can collect enough data points, I believe, about something that's rare and in only 40 people with the amount of genetic profiling and other types of analysis that we can do now with technology to go way, way deeper and find signal in the noise and figure out what works and what doesn't work, even in a smaller data set. Now, big data sets are still going to drive things in AI, but we're going to be able to solve a lot of problems faster.
What's the range of costs for somebody going through cancer treatment?
Yeah, it's so wide. I've been very lucky in that my health insurance here in the state of Colorado has covered much of it. Wow. And then I've gone outside of, in addition to that, and hired experts that are not covered by health insurance, and into the tune of, I'm probably at $250,000 out of pocket, with insurance paying for everything that I've asked insurance to pay for. There's just things that they're not going to pay for that
Sure.
I've purchased as well. So yeah, I think, if you look at what, if you don't look at what you're paying for premiums already and just say, like, let's say you're really well covered, you can, I believe, get to a place through a cancer journey like this for not that much money. The time is going to be huge. One of the things when I went into this is I was surprised at how much the oncology team was really concerned about how my life would change from a professional standpoint, because they were like, we can write you a doctor's note, to let your boss know that you need time off. And I said, I'm able to pick my own schedule, so I appreciate that. I won't need that. Thanks. And they said, well, you'll want to think about how much you'll want to work then, since you can choose. And I said, well, I'm going to choose to work 0 is my answer, which is an incredible luxury, an incredible position to have. And so going into this, realizing that, like, I have this amazing place that I'm in where I can do nothing professionally. Now, my wife and I still had to spend hundreds of hours liaising with hospitals, liaising with schedulers, and liaising with health insurance companies.
Wow.
My one health insurance company, and even talking to a few others about what they could do for us. So a massive amount of time overhead. I think that for a lot of people is going to be incredibly difficult.
What did you find yourself doing with that time?
Sleeping. Yep. I probably slept more in the last year than I have in the 2 years before that. Yeah. I got really good at sleeping. I had, it's a very clear excuse, as a person who wants to build and create, and, I sometimes admittedly feel a little bit of guilt when I'm not building and creating. And I love it too. So I chase it and it's fun. But this last year, I gave myself full permission to be a cancer patient and to heal. And plenty of evenings where about 5:30 p.m. I said, guys, I'm heading up to bed. Our house was this safe bubble. We didn't let anybody else in and out. My kids still went to school. My parents stayed with us and helped, which was incredible. They moved to Colorado for 6 months and just embedded with the team, drove the kids everywhere and helped out. And Sarah jumped in with me, and we spent time in hospitals. And I think I ended up spending 14 nights in total in hospital, inpatient, kind of spread out over it. And I think I've been to the ER 3 times since then for things that keep coming up. I almost went to the ER 2 nights ago, 3:30 in the morning. I was able to not go to the ER again. Yep. Yeah. I broke out in hives head to toe, and it was a scary allergic reaction for like no reason other than that my body's different now from what it's been through, and it was angry about something. So yeah, we dove in, and the one I said to myself on the front side of this, I looked at it as positively as I could, and I was like, all right, I'm going to get some more time to learn to play guitar. That was the one big thing I had on the front side of like, all right, like I'm not going to be able to be around other people, go out in public, but man, I can sit in my music room in my house in my comfy chair and get my guitar out. And like by the end of this, I'm going to be some sort of guitar shredder. This is going to be awesome. I've played guitar less in the last year than I have played in the last 10 years before that. I just was exhausted. Yeah. I just didn't, I was not in a place to learn anything new or to record new patterns into my brain. And I discovered that pretty quickly. But I was in a place to experience adventures slowly. And I did that through books. And I read a couple of the greats, Endurance, the guys stuck on the island in their ship in the ice getting crushed in like 1880. What was it? It was a long time ago, right? Just some of the greats, some canoeing adventures, canoeing with the Cree. Eric Severid, as a teenager in high school, deciding he's going to canoe out of Minneapolis north all the way up to Hudson Bay. I think it's 2,600 miles as an 18-year-old. and just leave his family in, I think it was 1910, like that adventure of him and a high school buddy who's younger than him. I think he's 16 or 17, going up into Native American territory and land and just being in the wilderness. Oh, there's grizzly bears, or polar bears, actually. Sorry, maybe grizzly bears too. I don't know. They're polar bears, and just trying to figure it out. So I lived through these adventures, solo explorers in the Amazon jungle, the book Mother of God. I found myself in those adventures. And after a couple of those books, I started asking friends for more. That's what I did with my brain through a lot of that, was like, take me to another place, take me on a fantastic adventure. And it opened my mind in a way that I wouldn't have read that many adventure books in a 3-month period of time. And it was expanding just to go beyond these adventures in the jungle, tiptoeing through the jungle, and this guy seeing the eyes of a jaguar in the distance, reflecting in the moonlight, and realizing it could kill him at any moment. And he keeps walking down the trail. And here I am sitting here going through chemotherapy thinking, chemotherapy could kill me at any moment too. But right now I'm this guy, and the chemo is the jaguar. And
have you been to the jungle?
Let's make this a great experience. I've never been to a jungle. No.
I'm going to the jungle. I've been in the jungle a lot. I'm going to the jungle end of January. It's my 40th birthday.
Wow. Where are you going?
Into Bogota. And one of my best friends was living here in Boulder for the past 15 years from Bogota, has now just moved back to work with his teacher in the jungle. Okay. So I'm going to go down and visit, and you're invited.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. When are you going?
End of January. I don't have it booked exactly yet, seeing how that all, making sure he's in the jungle, but flying
that's a cool time of year when it's cold out here to go visit a jungle. Yeah.
What was it like what's the importance of having a health advocate like Sarah?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's critical. It's critical. I don't know how anybody can navigate this alone as a patient. I think the most heartbreaking thing I experienced through this whole thing was a woman who's probably in her 80s who was in the chemo chair next to me one day. And she was just trying to ask her doctor a question. And how you do that now is you type it into the health systems app, right? She's like 85, and I think she had breast cancer because the drugs she was taking seemed consistent with that. And she was doing fine over there. She seemed to be doing okay. She was alone, and Sarah and I were sitting in our little chemo cubicle, sort of, is what they were in, next to her, and kind of separate. We never interacted with her, but we could hear her conversations with the nursing staff, and she was completely reliant on the nursing staff, and they were great. They were helping her, and she types up this big message, and I don't think her eyesight's great, and she's typing on her little device, and she's finally typed the message in to ask her care provider what she needs to know, some critical decision, and it won't submit. And she's trying to get the nursing staff to help her, and they're trying to explain to her that she's exceeded the character limit of the messages. Oh. And there's this 85-year-old human who's alone trying to navigate this. Wow. And the damn system says she's typed too many characters into her question. And so now will she get the care she needs, and will she get the answers she needs? And so a healthcare advocate or a person by your side going through an experience like this just helps bridge the gap to making it all human again. That was heartbreaking for Sarah and I to see. And she ended up getting it resolved, and the nurses helped, and they were amazing. And they bridge a lot of that gap as well, of trying to make healthcare human for humans. I saw that. And I think that was another big takeaway from all of this is, how the nursing staff does 99% of the actual work in the medical system. Doctors are decision makers, and I guess that makes sense when you think about it, but they're just the decision makers. You can run ideas by them, and they'll share their recommendations, and then they build a plan, and then they go make decisions for somebody else. And then when the plan is ready, there's a whole other team of people that sometimes are PAs, but even the PAs are mostly on the decision-making side. And then there's the nursing staff that does everything. And when I would go for infusions, that's who I would see for all except for about 3 minutes a day. There'd be a doctor interaction. And so that was an eye-opening thing for me as well, to just realize that I had this thing that I think was kind of a negative belief around the hierarchy in the medical system. And it was that nurses have the least amount of training and schooling. So I want as much exposure and time to the doctors because they're like the smarter ones.
Yeah.
And the more I went through it, the more I realized that the nurses know what actually work.
Because they're on the front lines.
They're on the front lines. They are like the entrepreneurs of this space. They're the ones playing with the new tools and the new things and actually know that that button is supposed to do that, but it doesn't. So you have to actually do this instead to make it work. Or to be more comfortable, why don't you try this? The things that just made such a massive difference in the experience. And so I've come out of this feeling like nurses are the heroes of this whole thing.
Maybe the unsung ones.
Oh, and absolutely unsung. There's something about slapping that MD on the end of somebody's title that makes everybody think they're the heroes. And look, they're doing great work and they're making big decisions, and they are. But man, there's just something really human about that connection with the people that are actually getting work done. It made me really, really impressed at what those people know. They know things that nobody will learn in school. And as an entrepreneur, I appreciated that because I know stuff about businesses that you will never learn in a business school, and you do too. And like that's a special place in my heart for that. Like I didn't go to business school.
Same.
Yeah.
Who are some of the other maybe unsung heroes? Who are you interacting with? It seems like huge teams of people.
Yeah. In the cancer journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've supplemented it with some real expertise, a team called Private Health Management that's based out of LA, but their people are at least all around the US. And that's a team that I was able to put together that's very costly. And it's not a thing that most people are going to have access to, unfortunately. And what it gets me is a team of PhD research scientists, as well as a team of experienced, I guess, practitioners, you could call them, people that are, specifically in my case, it's a woman who's a PA, who's been an oncology PA for 25 years, actually in the Colorado health systems. So she knows the area, she knows the docs, she knows how we do it in Colorado, and then kind of an operations team behind it. So, a very common problem for me in this journey so far has been, I have a headache, and I tell my oncologist, I've had a headache for 5 days. And when you've had a diagnosis like I've had, headaches aren't just headaches. They're reasons for concern. And so my oncologist says, you need an MRI tomorrow of your brain. And I say, that sounds really scary. Okay, let's do it, and let's make sure everything's okay. And they say, great, I've put an order into the health system for you to get an MRI. Call this phone number to the scheduling department, and they'll get you scheduled. And I call them, and how close do you think they are to 1 day, which is what my oncologist said I need.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a stat MRI, highest priority. The only higher priority would be if I was actively in an emergency room right now. That would be higher priority than this. So I'm the second highest priority across all the levels of priority that you can have for the order. That's the oncologist's request, not me demanding it or anything. They're saying, you need this now. All right, great. What do you got? They're like, all right, well, 4.5 weeks out, we have an opening 3 hours away from you. Okay, what else you got? Well, we'll let you know if anything opens up before that.
Wow.
And then you wait 3 weeks, and you're prepping for the MRI, and they call you and let you know that the machine broke. And so they're rescheduling everybody for today for 2 months out. And I'm trying to reconcile that with an oncologist that says, you need this scan tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the health system says, the best we can do is weeks out and months out, which is still pretty good. I mean, I've heard in other health systems in other countries, if you need an urgent MRI, it's 6 months or something like that.
Wow.
So there's this disconnect where the experts say you need something on this timeline, and then there's the reality of like when it actually can be done. And so this additional team that I've used has been incredibly helpful with that, because there is just a business of blocking and tackling and asking more questions. They say the soonest thing is 3.5 weeks from now. And then you say, well, what about this hospital that I know that's near me? And they're like, oh, yeah, well, that's not in that system, but I can go to this other system and look at their availability for you.
Wow.
Why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. What do they got there? Well, they can get you in on Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's just some really frustrating realities of just asking the right questions.
And navigating this whole thing. It seems like a very complicated web of support.
Yeah, in my first diagnosis with my first cancer in 2009, I struggle with the fact that I've had 2 rounds of this now. It's just wild to say. The first time I had cancer. Well, my doc told me exactly what to do. He was great. He said, you need to go to this surgeon locally in the town I lived in. You need to have this surgery, and you need to do this type of other radiation, and that's how you'll do it. I said, all right, great. I went and met with that surgeon, sounded good, talked to some other friends, and just got ideas from people of like, what might I do and what questions might I ask? And then I had another follow-up with my doctor a few weeks before I was scheduled for that surgery. And I said, all right, let me ask you this question differently. I said, if time, money, and location didn't matter, how should I treat this cancer? And he said, oh, I'd go to MD Anderson in Texas, and I would do this different procedure, and I would do this. And I just, why didn't you tell me that before? Mm-hmm. And I realized that he just assumed, like, I wouldn't want to go to another state to treat my cancer. Like, I would like to do it here. And I couldn't take a month off. And that would have been hard. I was running a business. We had like 25 million annual revenue, growing to 40 million that year, hiring people every day. It was going to be brutal to take time away. But if I was willing to do it, I would love to know what the option would be and how much better things could potentially be. And so my takeaway from that was just based on the question I asked. And then I even asked a question. I got a completely different answer. And I don't know if that treatment plan would have been 10 times better or, 0.1 better, or who knows, or even worse potentially. But it was different. And it showed me that there were more options when you ask questions. And same with this like really simple like scan scheduling thing. It's like I need scans all the time now, and sometimes I need them urgently. And the anxiety that I get waiting for a scan is tough. And I think anybody in this situation that's a cancer patient feels that. Like, here I am like, oh, everything's great. And then I had a little headache, hasn't gone away in a few days. And now a doc says, oh, that could be something scary. Let's make sure it isn't. And then now I wait weeks to find out. And then like that, this is a specific example from August. And then I got the scan and he's like, oh, everything looks good, man. Thank goodness. You're great. You're good. Like just take some ibuprofen for that headache. And, for weeks I sat there terrified that this was something really, really bad. And those are hard times. Those are hard times when you're just trying to live your life. And like I felt good otherwise and felt healthy and trying to make the most of each moment. And so this big team, I think this goes up, your question was, this health advocate and how do you navigate this sort of stuff? It's really challenging. It's more complex than it needs to be. There's a mismatch between what the providers ask for and what the system can deliver. And I like to try and get the most out of everything and do it the best way possible. Same. That's just how how I'm wired. I do this on the business side. And so for me, there's a lot of frustration that comes from that. And there's nobody to blame or anything like that. It's just really can be hard to navigate. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of emotion and persistence in a time when, as the patient, you feel like rock bottom, like scared for your life, feeling physically sick from whatever the situation is, the disease, and then you need to be your best version of yourself to try and navigate it at the same time. So I don't know how that's possible as a one-person show.
What's the overall sentiment of the people that you're interacting with, from the nurses to the doctors? Are they like, hey, everything's going to be okay, it's all going to work out? Or it's like, this sucks for you, this is not good, this is real serious, and be scared?
Yeah. No, very positive.
Cool.
Very serious in terms of what they're doing that needs to be done and how to do it, but very supportive and very lighthearted around other things. Very clear with their language too. Like I definitely noticed the difference where, they talk about chemo as anti-cancer therapy. That's their word for it. So nobody's saying like, we're going to cure you or here's the medication that's going to solve this problem or this is going to make this go away. It's like, this is your, we'll be administering your anti-cancer therapy today. We're going to really try, which I think is fair. Like they should not be in there making commitments that they could do anything they can't do.
Yeah.
But I've definitely noticed that language. They're careful to not promise things that are out of their control. And I think that's scared me sometimes when I've realized it's not just out of my control, it's also out of their control too, that we're going to try our best. But then also reassured me in other cases where I realized like we are all trying our best. We are all trying to do everything that we can do, knowing that this disease has its own thoughts about things and its own path and its own agenda. It's not conscious, but it's got its own things it's trying to do at the cellular level. And, you know, we're all controlling the pieces we can control, and the rest of it's just going to be up to something. I don't know what.
There's no consciousness in it.
I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't think so. In the disease? Yeah, I don't think there is. Yeah.
Who's making the most money in this whole process?
That's a great question. Who's making the most money in the healthcare
because
system
cancer
today?
is a very lucrative business. Cancer treatment.
Yeah, the drug makers are making good money. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of money flowed their way, and I don't think it's I can't like cast a judgment on it and say it's like an unfair amount of money.
Yeah, just to bring
what they got to bring
transparency.
something to market and test it and find out that it's safe enough to be administered to humans is a massive task. You know, the doctors and the surgeons, you know, get paid a ton of money. And that is just a job that I think almost nobody can do and almost nobody would ever want to do. Like, you know, every time I've had to have surgery, it's like checking at 5:30 a.m. at the hospital, and there's like 400 other people checking in next to me.
Wow.
I think what did they tell me? There was 87 operating rooms at Anschutz Hospital in Denver or something.
Wow.
It was massive.
Wow.
And so you put in the gurney and you get wheeled down and you're IV'd up and you're laying back in these white hallways and you just turn and go through a door and you turn and you pass 4 ORs and then you turn through another door and pass 6 more and then here's you and you wheel you in and there's robots and machines everywhere and it's like, it's incredible. I've had 7 surgeries in the last year and like, God, I hate to say it, I'm almost like enjoying them at this point. I'm in awe. Like, what is this place? And how do they do what they do in here? And then, you know, and then I take a deep breath and the lights turn out and I wake up a few hours later and something hurts. Like, yep, got a surgery there. So I'm just amazed, and it's like, yeah, checking at 5:30, surgeries at 7. Somebody's got to get up, start their day, get prepped, and get ready to do something incredibly detailed and incredibly serious by 7 a.m. every darn day.
It's the Super Bowl every day for them.
It's the Super Bowl every day, and there's 87 of these operating rooms. And think about how many people are doing that, and think about how much school and training and education they have to go through, and how calm they have to be under pressure.
You hope they didn't get in a fight with their spouse the night before, and that they got good sleep. And
I've had the thoughts of like the week leading up to my surgery. Like, what if somebody steps on her hand at her kid's flag football game or something, right? Yeah. Like, then my surgeon is not available for me and everybody else. And then who's going to fill in? And it's just like, they are doing some incredible work. And the doctors and the oncologists that have to come in and face people in the scariest moments of their lives every single day, that's got to be emotionally super challenging. And they're dealing with a disease that unfortunately a lot of people don't survive. And so their patients are just not making it at a rate where I don't know who else interacts with people that don't live at such a high rate. And so that's got to be hard. So I'm just so impressed. Like, I don't think there's any amount of money that would be unreasonable to pay these people to get people to sign up and put themselves through this type of kind of discipline and to some degree psychological torture to come in every day and do this type of work. So I'm super impressed with everybody I've interacted with.
Yeah, and I believe that they should be paid well. It's more my thinking was, this is a big business, and where is the money flowing around this business? Yeah. What's the state of, you said in awe of the robotics. What's the state of robotics?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it other than that, you know, I think in both of my big surgeries, it was a 5-hour surgery and a 2.5-hour surgery recently. It was a robotic surgery. So they're using a Da Vinci surgical robot, which I have seen in the room. And it looks like some sort of big crab with like crab arms sticking out that are all wrapped in plastic with, I'm guessing, something that cuts on the end of them. Some of them fill you with air to open up the cavity so they can work. Others are cameras. Others are the devices that actually move things around. And so nothing actually went inside my body other than the mechanisms from the surgical robot. Like the surgeon's hands were fully on the outside. operating the robot. So that's the extent of my understanding of it, but precise, lots of small scars that heal really quickly.
So it's like these little tubes go into you, and then little arms, cameras,
Yep.
anything can go through those tubes.
Yeah.
And
So they call it docking the robot. So they spend a first period of time basically, either the robot's making incisions or they're making incisions, and then they're like connecting these tubes into the holes, and then everything goes in and out through there, and there's cameras, and there's things that cut, and there's things that sew, I guess, I don't know, like the things that do all the things that surgeons do. And it just happens.
A lot less invasive.
Yeah. You don't have to have this like open air hole to you in the outdoor space while they go in there and work. And orthoscopic surgeries worked like that for a long time, except the human was manipulating, as my understanding, was manipulating the tools, just through the opening. And now the robot is actually driving the movement of the tools.
Oh, you're not driving the robot.
The surgeon is doing something to drive the robot, but the robot, my understanding, is using like motorized things to actually move everything on the inside.
But the robot's not deciding on what to do.
I don't think so.
The surgeon is telling the robot how to make the micro. Do you know the story of Da Vinci at all?
I don't. No, do you?
I invested in that company about 15 years ago.
No way.
Yeah. My understanding is that it was to support with military surgery.
Yep.
So on the battlefield in Afghanistan, people get hurt, and all the good surgeons are in Boston, and so they put the robot in Afghanistan, and the surgeon in Boston is able to
control it remotely.
To control it. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was that robot or not, but I remember in my computer science program in the early 2000s at Carolina, they were starting to have surgeons like moving a scalpel remotely. There might have been a tool like that was doing that. Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, thank you for investing in that company.
Yeah, they're good. It's unbelievable what that can do.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Where does the entrepreneur kind of spirit come alive for you when looking at opportunities in the health system? You got such a unbelievable insight into so many aspects of it. And there's a lot of room for improvement. Where would you get yourself involved, or where do you think people maybe listening today that don't know that there's real opportunity?
Yeah, data, precision medicine, making decisions based on data, genetic data. Yeah, I think that's where it is. Yeah. And like really, really detailed cellular level data, whether it's genetic or other types of things we can measure about our cells, and like cellular level and even maybe into atomic level systems inside of the body. Like the more we can collect data at those lower levels, and the more we can analyze that data. I think there was a moment in this for me where I had an epiphany around that and just realized like that is probably one of the most important things that any entrepreneur can be spending their time on planet Earth right now that will change outcomes for human life. And cancer is one of those probably top 5 of things that we can be trying to work on with that data. And cancer is people have said this before, and I like it. Cancer is not a disease. It's like 1,000 diseases. Oh. Like cancer is just this concept of like runaway cells that are out of control and will do great damage to the body and the systems that they can get access to. But there are a bajillion different types of it, and down to the different pathologies of how the cells work and how out of control they are or not, and where they are in the body and what they started from and what they can turn into maybe, or I don't know, I don't know the extent of it, but it's like, it's this, it's lots and lots of things. And that's one reason why you see a solution that works with one type of cancer does nothing with another type of cancer. And there's, the one size fits all solution has certainly evaded our modern thinkers and our researchers. We don't have anything close to that. But that might exist, or we might end up with, it's 1,000 different diseases that might have to be cured with a million different solutions. And figuring out which of those million cancer patient A, B, and C each need is going to probably end up being decisions made by something that's not human, something that's machine.
Where's your energy at today? How's the healing?
Yeah. I feel great today. Yeah. I feel great today. I feel incredibly lucky, incredibly grateful, incredibly rejuvenated through this. went into this diagnosis a year ago, probably the healthiest I've been in my adult life, physically. Not the healthiest I've been mentally in my adult life, but in a good place. Physically in a really, really, really top place. And since chemo and since many, many surgeries, I have now achieved a level of physical fitness that exceeds the level I had before it.
Wow.
Based on my fitness tracker in Strava. So whatever that's worth, it says I have. Mm-hmm. And I have absolutely achieved a level of mental health that is higher than I was coming into this. And I half wonder if there was something just a little off in my body that my brain was noticing before that. I was a little more anxious and like a little more low mood going into this than I would have liked to have been, which is judgment on myself, whatever. It wasn't in a bad place, but I wasn't really, really dialed. Like I was definitely struggling with a couple of things. And coming out of this thing on the other side, I'm, at least at the moment, knock on wood, like not struggling with those things. Mm-hmm. I am feeling braver and calmer than I ever have. I'm feeling more positive than I think I ever have. Life's back in color again. And it's like 4K OLED high definition color this time.
I loved hanging out with you pre-diagnosis, and this is the first real hang since your in your recovery, and I could sense that groundedness, that presence, that just it feels really good to be around, and it's contagious, and thanks. I feel more grounded being around you. Thank you for
thanks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's transformed me. I think every trying thing in our life can transform us. And I feel really grateful that I feel transformed from this instead of attacked by it. Mm-hmm. I haven't been angry at cancer through this. I don't know if I understand it, but I've tried to appreciate it, not as even a learning tool, but just as a human accident. Like it arrived, not necessarily to teach me some great lesson in life or to make me a stronger person. I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but it just, it showed up like a bad weather day where I decide I don't like the weather. I've just decided I don't like this cancer, and so we're going to try and get rid of it. We're going to fight it. And, I'm not angry at it. I'm just trying to live with it. And I'd be fine if it goes away forever. That'd be fine too.
Well, how does that work? When do you find that out? Or when are you like, okay, that chapter is closed?
Yeah, never. Yeah, I've never been a person comfortable using the word beating cancer. Like that just doesn't feel relevant to me, because also I don't feel attacked, so I don't feel like I have to beat something. Like I feel like what I have to go through to get through this is really challenging and will continue to be challenging. And that's just a challenge. That's not like a fight and I guess I say I have to be strong and fight this, but it's not like I feel like I'm in a battle where something has attacked me. It's like something's testing me. I think about it more of that way. And that the goal is to be here, is to be present. And, one way to win the game of being present and the goal of being present is to just be present with every moment I have. And another way to win that is to just be present for another 50 years. And, another 50 years is not guaranteed for anybody. So the thing that I can work on and we can all work on is just being present then. Like that optimization probably isn't that different. So to answer your question, like when am I out of the woods? Never. All the things they use to try and treat this cancer put me at risk of all sorts of other types of things, including cancers in the future. And so, surviving this one doesn't give me the cleanest path forward of like nothing to worry about in the future. And cancer in general is a disease of older people. And so as you and I get older, it will be more relevant for all of us, regardless.
So they're going to get better and better at
They're going to get better and better at figuring it out and treating it. Absolutely.
That's amazing.
So we have those two different trends. But the real technical answer to your question is 26 months after my surgery that I had in February, which was 8 months ago.
Is there one test that you recommend everybody take? Assuming most people are taking just the standard, blood tests.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that would be helpful that you got more insight into like that gene test or?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me think if I can remember some of the names. So the biggest ones for if you don't currently have cancer or you don't think you do, the Galleri test by Grail, and I think it's Galleri. And that is a early cancer detection test that is getting better every day because it's data driven because they're looking for, I think it's called methylated tumor DNA or something like that from your blood. So they just take some blood and they can screen for like 70 different types of cancer. And there's higher accuracy with some types and other types. But with a lot of cancers that don't get caught until stage 3 or 4, they have some ability to detect them at stage 1 or 2. And I think the numbers around pancreatic cancer were, most people catch it in stage 3 or 4, and it's just such a nasty killer. My grandfather died of pancreatic cancer.
How many stages are there?
4 is generally, yeah. So 4 is like metastatic, often terminal at that point. And so it means it's gone from wherever it started to like lots of other places and like cat's out of the bag. It's going to be hard to put it back in. Stage 1 is where you want to catch anything, which is like, wow, we got some cancer, but it like hasn't done much yet. Yeah. It might be really slow growing at this point, and it's like where it started, and maybe even in a place where we could just cut it out and you're good. Or put a little radiation on it, or sometimes it's even like hormone therapies they do or whatever. There's some other things we can do to really get ahead of it. And so with pancreatic cancer detection, the Galleri test, I think it's like in stage 1 and 2, they're like a 40% accuracy and a 60% accuracy, which like outside of that test, we have like 0% accuracy. Like you would never know you have stage 1 or 2
it's a blood
pancreatic
test?
cancer. It's a blood test.
Wow.
And it can screen for a lot. And there's some it doesn't do very well at all, but it's getting better every day. The risk is there's I think like a 5% false positive rate where they tell you they think you have cancer and you don't. So that's scary. But what happens in that case is you get some sort of other test. It would lead to some probably like a CT scan or an MRI or something like that, which is costly and will expose your body to some radiation. So there is a downside to this too, of like if you are one of those 5% or very small percent that get this false positive, they have to scan your liver or something. And they're like, no, you're actually good. At least you come out of it with clarity. But there's some cost to that. And there's a cost to the test. It's about $800 is what I've seen. And a lot of people are doing it once a year.
And do we have an affiliate link for you for that?
I wish, yeah.
Before this airs, we got to get you some affiliate links.
Exactly.
Give us some more tests. Who else?
Also, have you tried creatine gummies? the hot new thing. Yeah. So that one's a big one. If you have cancer, the one I'm using, the test I'm using monthly now is called Personalis. And the other one's called Signatera, but Personalis is supposedly like 100 times more accurate now. And so they actually profile a piece of your tumor. The piece of your tumor gets sent to this company, and they look for the DNA signature on it, basically. And then you do a blood test at whatever frequency you want. I was doing them quarterly. I've just bumped it up to monthly now. And they look for a signal of that in your blood. And so we got a positive signal at my original diagnosis from a tumor sample that it was in my blood, which is where we expected it to be at some microscopic level. And so they found a very tiny amount of it. And then after chemotherapy, that level went to 0. And then I had a surgery to remove the source where it was to hopefully get it to never come back again. And so that was the strategy. And so now we use that as ongoing monitoring. And it's extremely high definition compared to technology that existed years ago. And the big problem with it is that most of the oncologists in the U.S. don't have any protocols for what to do with it. So MD Anderson is the leader in this. They're like kind of the only people. I think some other people are starting to try and figure it out, but MD Anderson is starting to say, if you have this amount of threshold, like here's the threshold for we treat with this versus that, or if your numbers are below this, we don't do that, or some patients that are in this no evidence of disease could actually be positive at the DNA signature level versus negative negative, how do we treat them differently? And so there's almost no studies around this because this has only existed for like 3 years. This is really, really new stuff. So that's one that for anybody who has cancer and wants to try and watch very carefully to see what's going on inside of their body, the Personalis test is huge.
So cancer has its own DNA.
Yeah, because they're cells. And this is part of why they fool the body, is because they kind of look like good cells. And so, what happens when those cells die is their DNA breaks up and gets put into the body's trash collection system, just like everything else. And some cancer cells die and some keep going. And so they basically leave this little signature floating around in your blood, and then your body, I don't know where dead DNA in your body goes, but it goes somewhere and your body cleans it up. And so they can find that in your blood just floating around, just part of the trash collection process. And so they can say that DNA with high certainty belongs to your tumor. So that should not be in your body still, because we cut your tumor out. So we got a problem. So that's what it can help you understand. And it can help you look at like baselining before treatment. You can get it done off of like an initial biopsy and then get tested before treatment, before chemo, before surgery, after chemo at these different stages, and see how that number is changing. And so far, I've been really lucky that it started at 10 parts per million at the initial diagnosis, and it's been 0 since. And that's a terrifying test to take every month, and it needs to be 0 forever for me to get through this.
So you're getting good test results now?
Yeah, I've gotten 0 on all of them, which is what you want. Negative, yeah.
You're energized, life's in HD, you're present. Yeah. What does the day-to-day look like for you now?
Yeah, it's trying to figure out, it's two things. It's building tools, and it's trying to figure out how to communicate those tools to people so they'll understand the value of them, hopefully try them, give me feedback on them, and I can change the tools. And that manifests itself in lots of different ways. I'm going to be running an in-person event starting in Boulder in a couple of weeks that I'll run kind of as a regularly scheduled thing. I'm doing my keynotes. I've had some workshops that have been running for years that I may revive again. I'm running a community of people that meet virtually and support each other virtually to become what we call superhuman mental athletes, people with these incredibly high, almost defying the laws of nature levels of mental resilience. And so that's what all this stuff is turning into. But it's at the core, it's me building things, putting them in front of people, getting feedback. And I just kind of, I let each day flow kind of like the river. I let each day kind of guide me and where my energy feels like I can build today. So I actually love sitting down at CapCut and editing something from a couple days ago. Trying to figure out how to put the perfect message together and make it make sense and make it impactful. There's a lot of art in that. There's a lot of art in like what part do I keep and what part do I leave out, and how do I flip the hook to the front so people actually care and pay attention in this world where we all have short attention spans. And there's other days where it's like, man, I was dreaming last night and I dreamed of this idea of a way to explain what I'm doing, and I sit down and I write a script, and then I get in front of the camera and I try and say the words that I thought of. And then I put that on a file in a folder on my desktop to be edited at a later time. And then there's days where I either think of a new tool and create, although in the last month or so it's been kind of I put things out there and now I've got all this feedback. And so now I have this huge list of things I want to change about each of the tools to improve them or to clarify them. And it's definitely been a fun, it's been this kind of experience where I didn't have a lot out there in the world that I was asking for feedback on 6 months ago. As I was coming out of this health journey, everything was kind of paused. And now I've started creating things and putting it out there for feedback and criticism. And I'm getting all of that input coming in. And it's like a daily triage of like, what do I want to work on today? Like that tool, I've got a bunch of feedback on how to make it better. Do I feel energy for that? Like, no, I think I want to do some editing. I want to edit some of my messages before, and I'll go work on that for an hour. You know, the way to actually explain this hasn't been that other way. You know, I think it'd be better to explain it this way. I'm going to take that metaphor or analogy and put it into a little story, and I'm going to shoot that content. I'm going to put it out there and see if that resonates with people. And so it's me again, just building and tinkering and asking for feedback and trying not to get my feelings hurt when people don't like things.
Try not to take it personally.
Try not to take it personally, and remember that some people are just mean and unhappy. I think it's a constant thing that us as creators and builders have to remember is that like 1% maybe is going to be really disgusting, the interactions we have. And the rest of them are going to be either helpful or not helpful or really positive or something, right?
And it has nothing to do with me.
It has nothing to do with me. Yeah, exactly.
It's like they got their own thing going on, and they got cut off, and now they're mad at me.
Yeah, like someone's having a real bad day, and I'm just the ad that they saw on the internet.
Yeah. Something that's coming up for me is supporting you and getting your message out there. That's what I'm doing with this podcast. This is helping me to get my message out as well, and practice getting my message out, and then helping to get other people's message out too. It's like a win-win-win. It's like there's so many wins. There's this tornado of wins all around this podcast. I'm so blessed by it. And with your world-class network, even just here in Boulder alone, you might enjoy a once-a-week podcast. What it looks like is maybe it's about 5 hours of prep. I have an assistant prep me, help with the prep, and then a marketing person help with how I'm wording the question so that there's like a hook-esque, social media-esque way I'm asking the question, and then record here, and you're welcome to use this studio, and you got space to set up. It's nice to have a studio, and then upload it to for an editor to edit, and then review the edits, and then post reels, clips, full podcast. It's a pretty could share the whole process with you, but I think you might enjoy that. Something to think on, and would love to support you with that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I like this type of extended conversation, and I think it's actually unique and fun to have it recorded and have it turned into something versus just you and I having a wonderful dinner together and talking about these things too. I think there's a bit of knowing that it's more than just you listening to my answers gives me a little, just like the right amount of pressure to try and consolidate them and make them clearer. Yeah. And that's useful to me as a person who likes to share ideas. And I think that makes it unique and different and special. So.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil and a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1 week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm. And this was a phenomenal podcast. You did such a great, it helps that you've got unbelievable stories, but you're well-spoken, articulate, there's passion, there's so much goodness here. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share or let people know about?
I'm sharing this message now with everyone, and this is kind of the core of my professional work now, which is discover and work at your optimal pace. Figure out what the pace is that works for you. And I think it's the big epiphany that I found in my research data and in my life the last 10 years. It's that for each person, even on each day, there's a right amount of effort and a right amount of pressure that allows us to be a super high performer and accomplish amazing things today and not limit ourselves tomorrow, not have to borrow from tomorrow's productivity and tomorrow's creativity and reduce the ability of tomorrow's genius version of ourselves. And so when we find that optimal pace, and that's what the tools that I've been building at Dory are trying to help people do, and they're getting better and better with more data and kind of living this dream that I shared about what I want to see happen in the world of medicine. I'm bringing data and analysis and prediction with machines to these components in mental performance. And it's just giving me tons of energy in what I'm discovering. And what I'm discovering in a very, very short version is just that, is that figure out what your optimal pace is each day. Like, make this decision each morning. You can use our free tools, or you can try and figure it out on your own, or you can ask GPT. I don't care how you do it. Try and understand what the right amount of effort for you each day is, and try and stick to that. And incredible things will happen if you do that.
Can you give us an idea of where most people are operating today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from our data, most everybody is doing what we're calling sprinting, which is they're putting too much effort in every day in a row. So we, as humans, and the way our brains work, is we can expand up to incredible capacity for little sprints here and there. And sprinting is a really powerful thing. If you find out as an entrepreneur that you've got the biggest business opportunity of your life and it's happening next Tuesday and you just found out about it and you need to work 100 hours in the next 7 days to make it happen, that's a reasonable time to sprint. Like, go for it, man. Go for it. Go for it. You can do it. And then recover intentionally afterwards. Don't expect that you can then go into a great normal day, the Wednesday following that. And so that's really the power of knowing where you are and knowing what your pace is for today. If your pace is, I can put 6 hours of solid work in today, but I have to put 10 in, then you're borrowing a little bit from the future. If you know that you have the capacity to work 15 hours today and you only really need to work about 6 hours, you know that you're going to get your 100% self out of all 6 of those hours, and you're not going to borrow from tomorrow. You can wake up tomorrow and still have 15 hours of capacity tomorrow if some sort of emergency comes up in your business. So there's a real power in understanding what you can do with this tool, this machine that is our brain.
Where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, I think probably our Instagram account for Dory, which is Thrive with Dory, has the most updated content on it now. I post a little bit of stuff on LinkedIn, but our website's thrivewithdory.com, and people can come there and sign up for our community, sign up for our live sessions, find all the tools that we've built. Most of them are free. And still looking for feedback on how it's relevant in people's lives. I'm collecting so much. There's a neuroscience executive who's launching a neuroscience drug to the market right now, who is being coached by me every day that I'm doing.
Oh, yeah, I'm in 7th place for
You
that
are.
one. This person's not falling off.
He's incredible. He's incredible. Yeah.
It's a bit like magic as I go through the quiz, and I just on 1 to 10 scale, maybe 10 questions.
Yeah.
And then it's
9.
like here's where you're at. I'm like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah.
How do you know?
And the more you do it, the smarter it gets.
Oh, really?
It gets
Okay.
really, really good at its predictions. I just rolled out the enhanced prediction algorithm last week, and it's doing a really good job of getting people like dialed into that zone. And that person I was just mentioning, who's launching this neuroscience drug to the market right now, he worked 16 hours yesterday.
Whoa.
And
That seemed like too much.
yeah. But is it?
Yeah.
Can he handle it?
Optimal, right?
If his optimal pace is 18 hours, it's not too much. If his optimal pace is 5 hours, it's way too much. And so there's a lot of context in this, right? And so when you know what your optimal pace is for the day, then you know what you're doing and you know what you're capable of. And it's been incredible to see somebody who's working. We're 15 days in on this. Today's day 15 of working one-on-one together. And it's been incredible to see how different each day is from the last and how each day connects to the previous ones, and to see what that impact is, and then to see how that changes mental resilience, and then to see how he can make course corrections and bring everything back in line again after just a couple of days.
Well, I gotta get more serious with this. So I'm taking the test, but then I'm not following up to be like, okay, what do I do with this? How am I supposed to? So what's the next? So I've taken a few tests. What's the next step? Then what happens if I want to go farther?
The easiest, fastest way to get value out of this is try and scope your day to that number every day.
So take the test in the morning.
Take the test in the morning.
Okay.
Yep. It takes you a minute to do or something. Yep. You do it right on your phone. And you can download our app to do it, or just hit that link that's on our website, and you can just load it right there without even having to grab the app or sign up. And then, that's the easiest answer is like, if it says 3, like that's a really important message. Like, take it easy. Take it easy that day. That's 3 hours of solid work. You can get a lot done in 3 hours of solid work, but that's a strong caution that like 7 hours of solid work is going to cost you 20 hours of solid work next week if you push too much today.
Mine's always like, you could do more.
You can do more. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't realize. I'm like, I guess I have some fear around burnout. Your story of burnout. I have some other friends with burnout. I'm like, hey, this is a marathon, but I might be at more of a walking pace some days than the jog that I would like to be at. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you're always safe to work under your optimal pace. You're not going to burn out if you're working under your optimal pace. So for anyone who's concerned about burning out, pull this thing up once a week, pull this tool up once a day, whatever you want. It's free. Use as much as you want, and work less than it. And if you're working less than it, you have like
close to 100% confidence that you cannot burn out. Like that is the definition of how we're calculating these things, is that there's no way you're going to be able to burn yourself out if you're working under your optimal pace. If you're working right at your optimal pace, it's almost impossible as well. It's extremely unlikely that you're going to burn yourself out working right at that pace number. And then above it, the risk goes up pretty much exponentially, because what happens when you sprint is you get stuck in this cycle where your mental resilience falls because you've damaged yourself a little bit. And then the next day when you sprint again, it falls. And when your mental resilience falls, your optimal pace falls. So let's say you're working 8 hours a day and your pace is 6. So the first day you sprint by an extra 2, your mental resilience falls. You know, this is I'll fast forward because it doesn't happen every day, but over like weeks, what will happen is that your optimal pace will fall from 6 to 5, and you're still working 8. So now you're sprinting more. So then your mental resilience falls faster. So now instead of a month later it falling 1 point lower, it now falls 2 weeks later. It falls from 5 to 4. Now your pace is 4. You're still working 8. Your mental resilience falls again, and we can track all of this for people in our community numerically and with high precision. And it's just fascinating to see. I mean, in the background here, their mental resilience dropped 3 points today. They push, they sprint, drop 2 more points. Keeps going. 65 is average on mental resilience for all the business leaders we studied. 85, you get to a flat line where you basically never fatigue under pressure. And above that, up to 100, some people have positive fatigue curves where they basically don't fatigue and they actually somehow get stronger under pressure. And so if you're using our tools and you're above a 65, you're beating the average business leader in today's world. I mean, 417 of them we studied at least. So I think it's pretty representative. So you're doing great. If you're in the 70s, you're really kicking butt. If you're in the 80s, you're like unbelievable. And if you hit that 85 number or above, you're superhuman. You're less than 2% of the business leaders we studied.
Those would be fun people for you to interview.
Yeah. I've talked to all of them actually so far, just in casual conversations and asking them about their lives.
What's like the best case scenario? How good can life get when you're operating at this optimal pace? And how bad can it get if you are just like, oh shoot, I didn't know I've been sprinting and now I'm burned out? And then what does that look like?
Yeah. The superhuman life looks like this. Normal work is easy. Huge creative bursts are possible. And no crisis is big enough to derail your productivity. That's what superhuman life looks like. And so for many of us, our normal work's pretty easy. Creative bursts can be hard. Like we don't always have the energy for that 8-hour, just want to create the whole new version of our product today. Let me put it on a whiteboard and design it from scratch. Like that could take us out for a week or something, or we just can't do it. Or we sit down to do it and it's like, I haven't had a creative idea yet today. Like, what's going on? And then one crisis comes along or 4 of them come along at the same time. And then we're just like flat on our face, exhausted, making bad decisions. And we're stuck in the negative side of this. So, average at that 65 looks like somebody who like normal work is pretty good. You can kind of get through the normal day. Creative bursts are not really that easy. They're difficult for them, and they're not that creative when they sit down to actually do it. They're stuck in kind of binary thinking, like this plan or that plan, not let's blow up that whole thing and do it this other way that solves all of our problems. They just can't access that. And then all it takes is one little crisis or one little trigger. Something comes through Slack that pisses them off. They get some sort of like moron posting on their social saying something ridiculous and angry, and then they're just triggered for the whole day and they're just offline, and they can't even do normal work anymore. You go to the complete bottom side, normal work is difficult, no access to creativity, and zero ability to cover any type of dynamic situation or crisis. These are people with mental resilience below 65, falling down to maybe like 25, I think is the lowest we've seen of any actual measured person in our studies. And life's tough for those people because anything is tough. Everything is tough. Yeah. Any little bit of pressure takes their ability down almost to zero. And it does it very quickly. And so they're triggered by one thing, and then they're a disaster the whole day. They're mean to their coworkers, and they don't have empathy with their personal relationships. And then they damage those, and then they have to repair those the next day too. And so life's really hard when mental resilience is low. And I don't have like longitudinal data across these leaders for more than 5 years to tell you how it's changed before that. But my general observation is that as a population, we're all getting less mentally resilient because we're constantly getting attacked by just always on, always connected lifestyle. And a little bit of dopamine addiction, and it's causing our mental resilience to just is just kind of falling generally across the population. And I hear this from people, other entrepreneurs and people who hire people, and they're just saying like the workforce we're getting today just seems to like collapse the second you put any pressure on them like let's push, let's everybody get around, let's get excited, we've got this big launch coming up, let's go crush this thing. And like, it used to be that 90% of the people in the room were like, heck yeah, and 10% were like, oh man, and now it's like it might have flipped, like 10% of the people in the room are like, let's go get this thing, and 90% are like, oh, this is so stressful, I don't know if I can do this.
No.
Like it's just the second we try and dial up and motivate teams, or external pressure comes in, like we put the big demo out there and get the first big client, and then the product fails or something, right? Mm-hmm. Like that sort of crisis that we now need to go solve, like with our best version of ourselves, because that's the path forward. A lot of people are now telling me that their teams are showing up to those situations looking like they've been like physically attacked or something. Like they're just so triggered and so activated by the pressure of it that they're not in a place where they can be very helpful.
And if somebody commits to, working a plan towards increasing their mental resilience, how long might that take for them to start to see some progress?
So we've got one person in the study where we've seen this incredible change. So he made a 31-point difference. I think the math, I don't know if this math will add up right, but it was from 56 to 91, whatever that is, from mental resilience. So below average mental resilience to 91, like squarely above the superhuman level, which is 85, in 90 days. And what we're also seeing
is like a different person.
It's like a different person. And I've spoken with him, and he said he was absolutely a different person in that period of his life. And so then we looked at what was he doing in that time period to make this change, and we dug into the data and figured that out too. And it's a lot of really important small things is what the answer is. So it's probably a little more to discuss than we can discuss here. But we look at 37 different drivers in our community members' data for what drives improvements in mental resilience for them. And it's not the same for everyone. It's actually pretty different for each person. There's some consistency around pressure level. Most people don't increase their mental resilience when their pressure is an 8, 9, or a 10 out of 10. So when pressure is extremely high, they're just surviving. They're just getting through it. But growth happens at pressure levels kind of from 4 to 7, we're seeing. That's kind of a general trend. And then not as much growth happens with pressure levels kind of 0 to 3.
Is this general life pressure levels, or is this work pressure levels?
It's both. We're asking them, like, how much pressure do you feel like you're under in your life? And so sometimes they're answering because of something that's going on that's a challenge at work right now. Sometimes they're answering because they're supporting an elderly loved one or something like that, right? So it can be either. And it doesn't matter. I don't think my understanding of it is our brain doesn't care where the pressure is coming from. Like, if you think about like the engine in your car, either has gas in it or it doesn't care whether the gas came from one company or another company or this part of the world or that part of the world. It's like your engine's burning down through gas. It's the kind of the same thing. Pressure is causing our mental reserves to become lower, and it doesn't really matter what the pressure is. Now, there's some context to like how we solve it matters a lot, what type of pressure it is, or maybe what tools we might bring to solving it. But in terms of how we respond, pressure is pressure.
Well, thank you for doing this work. Thank you for sharing your story. I wanted to offer you a gift of something I've been working on, some microgreens here.
Beautiful.
How do you think of microgreens? Because I know they're a part of your life today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to me, it's about trying to get the full amount of nutrition in my life. And I have actually a good amount of time to cook meals, which is something that I think is maybe rare for a lot of us these days. And I still think about microgreens as a way to get extra nutrition. Like I actually try and get 5 servings of vegetables in breakfast every day. And I can pull that off in breakfast usually really, really well. But at other meals, it's definitely more difficult.
Let me see what this is. The powder is a little bit different than the loose leaf. So a half a teaspoon is 1 serving of leafy greens.
Perfect. Yeah. Yep. Yep. And you can add this to everything. I mean, that's the thing I like about it.
Yeah, just don't cook it.
Yeah, don't cook it. Yeah. You talked about just putting it on sandwiches or like putting it on hamburgers, which is like.
I'd love to see you bring it on a rafting trip.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I always got space in the dry box for good stuff.
Yeah, and would love to hang out with you more in nature, mountain biking, skiing, rafting.
Yeah.
Invite me to anything that
Let's
you feel
do it.
called to.
Well, I brought something for you as well
Please,
today.
thank you.
What I think is maybe the world's finest farmer's market tote.
That's a good
branded Dory coming your way. But more importantly, for the outdoor lifestyle that I know you lead, we've got a ski strap branded by Dory.
Love it.
That I'd love for you to have and put it around your skis for safekeeping in your car. We don't want them to rattle and get damaged when you're heading out to all those great places to go skiing. And then probably...
What are you skiing with? What type of skis do you have?
I got them all now, man. I probably
you do?
probably got 10 pairs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you got them all now.
Yeah. My skinniest 2 pairs are a 99 underfoot and a 96 underfoot, and everything above that is like a powder ski. It's like 106 underfoot up to 118 underfoot, like some pretty good powder skis.
So if I wanted to ski with you, it'd probably be best to get the Icon Pass. Sounds like you're mostly Icon.
I've been mostly an Icon guy the last couple of years. Yeah.
I've been all Epic, but this year I haven't purchased one yet, but I'm looking.
Are you thinking about it? Yeah. 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 Icon works great because I can go to Eldora here on a weekday when I'm in town, and then I'm in Steamboat otherwise. And so it's a big Icon mountain. All right. So this is probably the most important piece
Now we're talking.
of Dory swag. This is the most comfortable hoodie on earth, in my very humble opinion.
How they make it so comfortable?
With a Dory, I don't know. This is Topo Designs. So
nice.
they make great stuff.
They know what they're doing.
This is a serious hoodie. It's got the Dory emblem on the side, and we only give this to our most dearest community members, which you, sir, are one of. So
Thank you.
I hope you'll enjoy this. And
Thank you.
Take this to the farmer's market, where I think you and we didn't first meet at the farmer's market, but I first saw you after we met at the farmer's market with microgreens.
Yeah.
So take that your next time there.
Thank you.
Load it up with good veggies, my friend.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really loved up.
You can hold a lot of vegetables in there.
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Especially if they're microgreens. I mean, how many servings of vegetables do you think you could get in there?
You could probably put a couple $1,000s worth of microgreens into that thing.
Yeah. Which would be how many servings of vegetables?
I don't know. It's an insane amount.
10,000 servings of vegetables in that one tote bag.
The whole year.
Might I dare say. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to freeze them. You got to keep them fresh somehow.
Exactly.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share?
Thanks, my friend. No, appreciate your time, man. Always enjoy your energy.
Looking forward to hanging out soon in nature.
Let's do it.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, man.